Redevelopment Agency. That is our CRA. We're delighted to have each of you with us. At this time, I would ask Madam Clerk, Ms. LaMagna, for a roll call.
Commissioner Reed,
Here.
Commissioner Paris,
Here.
Commissioner Strickland,
Here.
Commissioner May,
Here.
Commissioner Cantu, Commissioner Henry,
Present.
Chair Derek L. Henry.
Present. At this time, we will have the invocation, which will be led by Commissioner Strickland, and we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, normally led by Commissioner Reed. Tonight, we will be favored to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by the distinguished cadets. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alpha, ace, forward, march.
Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for allowing us to come together here tonight, to have the citizens here for their input, to participate in their government, and to watch over and guide all of us to do the right thing in your eyes, especially those of us that sit up here. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We'll now move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of the November 6, 2024 meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries 7-0. We'll now have approval of our agenda. If there are any changes, our city manager will address them.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, there are no changes for the CRA agenda tonight.
All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
We'll take a motion from Commissioner Reed, a second from Commissioner May. No questions or comments? All those in favor, let it be denoted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, same sign. This motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is our administrative items. Item 6A is a redevelopment and neighborhood services approval of the use of CRA funds for work authorization number 2. This is a resolution approving the expenditure of tax increment funds from the Main Street Redevelopment Trust Fund in amount not to exceed $59,100 to pay for the conceptual landscape architect design for Main Street and Ocean Avenue streetscapes and area planning and providing an effective date.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion. We'll take the second from Commissioner Strickland, a motion from Commissioner May. Do we have speakers?
I have several speakers, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker is Jenny Nazak, and on deck is Sandy Murphy. And for the record, because you can come on up, Jenny, because we don't have our timer, I'll be using the iPad timer.
All right. Jenny Nazak, 501 Harvey Avenue. So the expenditure will include some plants and landscaping. This is a high-profile area, and it's a golden opportunity to make it reflective of our unique beachside environment. So I would request that the city go in a direction of plants that are similar to, like, for example, the Kemp Street entrance to the beach, where there's sea oats and sea grapes and wildflowers and so on. And also look into environmentally responsible lighting. Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next speaker is Sandy Murphy, and on deck is Ann Ruby.
Good evening, Sandy Murphy, 136 Park Avenue. I agree with everything that Jenny said. I think a small contract like this gives
Good
us
place
a
to start.
chance to really do something different without making anybody too nervous or worried about what's gonna happen with this native greenery. And I think it will be a wonderful little demonstration of how beachy it can make us feel, about how it will, kind of fit with the personality of our town. So I encourage you to approve it, but with the idea that we are encouraging a natural landscape that fits with our beachside location.
Who's in charge of putting that, buying that stuff?
Our next speaker is Ann Ruby, and on deck is John Nicholson.
Okay.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. I agree with everything Jenny said and Sandy said. It is a wonderful opportunity for us to take a leadership role in doing landscaping that is environmentally friendly, appropriate, and uses native plants. In addition, it should, when you're doing landscaping that way, you can come look at my front yard. It's getting brown. It doesn't look great. So additionally, they should incorporate into their design, what's it gonna look like when it browns out? There can be rock formations, there can be all different things that they could do to make it look great using only native plants. You don't have to fertilize, you don't have to water. It's the environmentally responsible thing to do, and it would make our beachside such a better place. So instead of, if you could give them a very clear instruction, that they come back with a plan that does that. Because they're gonna be tempted to come back with something, they'll say, well, we're just gonna slip in a few of these because they stay green year round. And then all of a sudden, now we have to water, we have to fertilize. So please, be clear in what you're asking for. Thank you.
I asked, is that the last speaker?
I have one more speaker, Mr. John Nicholson.
John Epson, 413 North Grandview. Jenny Nazak has been asking for this
That's
for
what I'm gonna say.
10 years, whatever. 35 years ago, we had a woman who decided that Daytona Beach should look like Miami Beach. We went through the Art Deco thing. Everything was pink, everything was aqua. Didn't work so well, all right? We have to be who if we were somewhere else. We have to be our own selves, all right? I have a couple of questions on the roads that we're choosing and the locations. Several years ago, we had a enterprise zone, and we decided to cut Ocean Walk in half and include one half of Ocean Walk in the enterprise zone, not the other one. Then we decided to go down Main Street, but not include anything past Peninsula. If you're going to have an entertainment zone, you include blocks on Main Street, and we're still not doing it, all right? Why are we landscaping Anderson's property, a private property? Why? We don't own Ocean Avenue North. Anderson owns that. If they're looking to build, we landscape it, and then 2 days later, they bulldoze it down for a hotel. It doesn't make sense. And lastly, why go down Ocean Avenue and stop at Harvey? That whole street, because just past Harvey is a very, very popular nightclub, a restaurant on the beach, all right? So if we're going to do it, let's do it right, let's do it inclusive, and let's take the holistic view that that is an entertainment zone and that all of it should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like the record to reflect that 4 of our most engaged residents have required or suggested a reimagination of how we landscape our beach. And Ms. Nazak has done that for a long time. I agree that this is a low-hanging opportunity for us to take advantage of that suggestion. So if it pleases a majority of us, I would like to recommend that we have staff to bring back something that reflects her suggestion. So, yes,
I'm okay with that.
well, that's not a majority of us. Okay, that's 3.
I've said so before, so
Okay, but I gotta hear it so we can give them a direction.
Let me turn my new mic on. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm in accordance with that.
Okay, all right, so staff, can you hear us back there? Okay, all right, thank you. All right.
So we have a motion and a
We have a motion and
second.
a second. I can't take, that's too loud for me. This is kind of different. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be denoted by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. 7-0. I was trying to get to 4. I always have to remind folks I know how to count to 4. Up here, that's what I try to do. But it was 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 6B. It's a redevelopment neighborhood services incentive agreement for Delta West Accent Daytona Beach. This is a resolution. A resolution approving an incentive agreement between the City of Daytona Beach, the Community Redevelopment Agency, and Accent Daytona Beach LP, providing for annual grant payments, development permit fee waivers, and impact fee reductions associated with the reservation of 50 residential units as workforce housing limits within a mixed-use development project to be constructed at the northeast corner of International Speedway Boulevard and Ridgewood Avenue, authorizing the mayor as the CRA chair and the city clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the city and providing an effective date.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, could we bring Jessica Gow up here to give some salient points on this item? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I do think I have a presentation that's just a rendering. We can get that pulled up. And the microphone has been in and out.
Okay, for that mic. That's not it. It may not be. Letitia. They can hear. She can just go.
Okay.
Can we turn on that mic? That mic is not on. Go ahead. Go ahead. They can't find it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just go over some main points. If we find it and get it up, great. Otherwise, I think it was in the backup, at least for the PDMM
Yeah.
file. So the request before you tonight is a public-private partnership between the city and Accent Daytona, who's redeveloping the former First Baptist site. The site is familiar to all of us. We've seen it come and go over the years, as we are familiar. This proposal tonight is a request for a tax abatement agreement for up to 80% of the tax increment generated by the project in exchange for certain performance metrics. The first of those is provision of a minimum of 300 apartment units with a minimum construction value of $70 million for the downtown. Of those units, 50 will be set aside for workforce housing, set at 120% of the area median income. Of that set aside, we also want to target at least 2 in a lottery system for first responders. City staff has asked if we're comfortable adding or teaching professionals to that, and we absolutely are. So if you make a motion tonight, we'd love to have you include that clarification that it could include teachers. And then we will also provide redevelopment of the site under the Florida Brownfield Redevelopment Program, improvements to Palmetto Avenue and Bay Street to improve parking and provide additional parking in those areas. And we are providing half rent for a period of 6 months for police officers, subject to a courtesy officer agreement. So those are the performance metrics that the project will bring forward. In exchange, we are requesting 80% of the tax increment assignable to the property. If additional commercial uses are not developed on the adjacent site within a certain time frame, that tax abatement drops down to 70%. And so that was a guarantee that while we do not own that property, we will help kind of motivate them to bring more commercial to the area as well, or that tax abatement request drops down to 70% instead of 80%. So this site in November of 2020 was approved for a tax increment agreement with Framework at the time, who's going to develop multifamily there. And that abatement request had 200 units and 95% of the tax increment. And a majority of the commissioners sitting here reviewed that and continued it the first time it came before you. And there are some really interesting notes in the minutes that I will just take a second to read. And I asked Ann if I could quote her, and she said I could. So in the minutes, Ann Ruby noted, in response to the TIF proposal, please take the opportunity to make downtown a place where residents of all income levels can live, work, and play. Boost the downtown not only with mixed use, but mixed incomes. The mayor, also in the minutes, said we have to realize that it's part of the benefit we have as a commission to acknowledge that we need workforce housing, affordable housing, and we need to have the capacity to help make that happen. And this project enables us to do that. We don't have to all agree, but he thinks we all agree that we need workforce housing. So that was in 2020. It did not work for Frameworks Proforma, and we know that they ended up not taking this site, and they're now developing a fantastic project at 400 Beach. But it does work for this Proforma, and we've worked for 3 years since this property owner bought this property with city staff to bring this project forward. And hopefully, all going well with this and a few other applications we have tonight, they'd like to break ground in the first quarter of 2025. So there will not be a delay here. They would love to have started it yesterday because they purchased the property in December of 2021. And so I'm really personally excited about this one. I think it's a great project. There is a rendering that you can see. Wow. This is from ISB in Palmetto. What I love about this perspective is it shows that we are activating the street directly. So those stoops go directly into residential units. Very unique, not really something that we have downtown or in the city overall. I will say the gray color on this rendering, at the neighborhood meeting, it was noted they like a more vibrant color. I think it was Ann. And so that is shifted to a blue. And so that has been shifted on the plan set, but not for the rendering just yet. So that will be blue. This shows the front facing from ISB and Ridgewood. So you can see we're designing it with some courtyard pop-ins in the actual units itself with some amenities tucked in there. And then the frontage along ISB and Ridgewood are preserved in a portion of Bay for the potential for future commercial out parcels if some of that parking is converted into structured parking. And so we have gone through quite a few design iterations with city staff. This exhibit here shows those orange areas along Bay Street and Ridgewood. Those are the potential future commercial opportunities, and the darker gray is where that parking would then become structured to support those commercial uses. So we think this is a really fantastic and exciting step for downtown. I've never seen a development group so invested to be in downtown Daytona Beach. We have the developer here with us tonight. They didn't wait for contract deadlines to expire or the risk that this didn't get approved. They bought the property 3 years ago and have working to bring it forward since. And so with that, I'm here for any questions. I did quickly want to note, the current taxes on the property are around $17,000 a year, with about $11,000 of that going to the CRA. Even with the highest level of a tax abatement request being approved, the city would realize $150,000 a year directly to the city under the life of the CRA after the redevelopment, with the remainder going to the tax abatement agreement. So you'll see tenfold return even with the tax abatement. With that, I'm here for any questions.
And so after 2036, what would be the amount?
The estimated taxes, just using the property appraiser tool, is $1.1 million.
And so for 10 years, we give them a big discount, and then 20 years more, the life of the normal loan, we would get So what if it sits for 5 more years? You know, what sense does that make? And we're getting how much off of it now? 17,000?
Correct.
Okay, let's get to business. Do we have any questions or comments? No questions, no comments? You said the applicant is here?
Absolutely. We have Kenny Budd with West Plan. From Atlanta.
Okay, all right, no other questions? Okay, we have a motion yet? And a second?
We don't have any speakers.
No speakers? Oh, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All right, any questions, comments? Here none. All those in favor, let it be denoted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
And let me say before we move on, you don't know how long you'll serve in these capacities. And so when you post things, and we live in a very fractured time where people are upset about a lot of things, and they have a right to be upset. But when you have lived in Daytona Beach all of your life, and you have had the city have an aspiration of a vibrant downtown, and I appreciate my colleagues for not having any doubt, any hesitation, any reservation, because we all want downtown to be beautiful, bright, brilliant. Tremendous private investment has been made. All I can say is the hell with the naysayers. Press forward with greatness. This is a project that is going to make our city a better space and our downtown better. If you want to have a good downtown, and we've said this for many, many years, we want to have we all want a grocery store down there, but you're not going to have it if you don't have people. You're going to have people. In any downtown that people go to, you have just great public spaces. I mean, any downtown that you go to has people, otherwise it's a dead downtown. So welcome to another step of liveliness in downtown Daytona Beach. And thank you to you all for having no reservation to show that we're still a city that's going to march forward to be a better destination. Yes, ma'am.
And that was our last CRA item.
All right, that concludes our CRA agenda. Oh, you got questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to share with everybody, I had gotten the redevelopment area taxes that we've collected for each of our redevelopment areas, and I wanted to share it with everyone. I know that we have our workshop is coming up in January, so just to get an idea of how much we're collecting, how much is going to be in the fund, and maybe how much we could spend on projects coming up for the next 11 years until it expires. So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Yeah, so, and over the next 11 years, we're going to try to do everything we can to get each one of these parcels and redevelopment areas rolling forward so that the next generation can be proud of these redevelopment areas. All right. Any other questions, comments? Okay, this concludes our CRA meeting. We will start our regularly scheduled city commission meeting in, according to our clerk, 5 minutes.
Oh, and just for the record, everyone,
evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the December 4th meeting of the Daytona Beach City Commission. We're delighted to have each of you with us. Madam Clerk, may we please have a roll call?
Commissioner May?
Here.
Commissioner Cantu?
Here.
Commissioner Henry?
Present.
Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Paris?
Here.
Commissioner Strickland?
Here.
Mayor Derek L. Henry.
Here.
Okay, we'll now move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of the November 6, 2024 City Commission meeting.
So moved.
Well, we'll take a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner Cantu. Do we have any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are in opposition, same sign. This motion carries 7-0. We'll at this time have our agenda. There's a change in our city manager. Address them.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, the changes for tonight: add addendum item 8M, redevelopment and neighborhood services incentive agreement for Delta West Accent Daytona Beach to the consent agenda. We're going to continue item number 11C, Public Works Amendment number 1 to GMP contract for Jackie Robinson Ballpark renovation project. Item number 8C, mayoral zone support distribution. Add the following from Commissioner Paula Reed: 1,000 Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, 1,000 one family at a time MTR Festival, $250 to the Black History Month banner project. From Commissioner Ken Strickland, 2,000 for one family at a time MTR Festival. Item number 8D, Bike Week sponsorship funds, $500 to bikers for charity from the Bike Week sponsorship funds of Commissioner Ken Strickland.
Might I add,
You already know now.
might I add $500 from Bike Week funds to the Daytona
Bikers.
Beach Tigers?
And may I add $250 for bikers for charity from Bike Week funds?
And I will also add that the Daytona Beach Tigers, who this commission has supported, it will be playing next week in the national championship for youth Pop Warner football. So, all right.
That concludes it.
Youth football, not Pop Warner.
Yeah, youth football. Well, Pop Warner is one league; they're a different league, but they're all Pop Warner to me because that's what I played, young boy football. Okay.
Big difference.
Yeah, big difference. Okay.
And may I send them $250 as well?
Okay.
No, for
No,
Tigers.
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 Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Any other?
I'd like
No.
to add $250 for the Tigers as well.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. All those in favor of the said?
We don't have a motion yet.
Oh, no. May I have a motion?
Yes, I move to accept the agenda with the said changes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Reed and May in that order. No additional questions or comments. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is our presentation. Item 6A is the Sea Cadets, presented by Lieutenant Juan Lewis.
Good evening. My name is Juan Lewis. I'm the commanding officer of the local Daytona Beach Sea Cadets. I want to thank Commissioner Cantu for inviting us and giving us this opportunity. The Sea Cadet program is the only Navy leadership youth program. It was established back in 1958. Our division's been since 1995. We drill out of the Coast Guard Station in Ponce Inlet. They go from, there's two programs. It's League, which is age 10 to 13, and the actual Sea Cadets is 14 to 18, or till they graduate high school. The program right now has 400 units all across the U.S., including Guam and Puerto Rico. The cadets have many opportunities to basically do our core value is to create leaders of character. Our cadets, like I said, range from the age 10 to 18. Right now, our division has 25 cadets, and we're just looking for the opportunity to get funding so they can get chances to go to different places. You might have seen us to some of the baseball games our color guard's been doing, the Tortugas. We're going to be participating at the Christmas parade this year with our color guard and them marching.
Thank you. Actually, one of those kids out there is Sergeant Blauer's children too, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell them a little bit about your program? If they're in this program and they're actually going into the service and E rank, E2, E3?
Yes. Actually, if they complete the program and they make the rank of a seaman, they actually get an opportunity if they enlist. Now, this doesn't include the academy. If they enlist in the Navy, Coast Guard, after they finish boot camp, they have an opportunity to come out as an E3 rate. So that in itself gives them benefit. The other Marine Corps is 2, in the Army and Air Force it has to be negotiated. It's usually about a 2 E-rate. The high percentage of our cadets end up going to, well, actually 60% last year, end up going either Naval Academies, the Air Force, or one of the academies, excuse me, or join the our military services.
So actually in this program, once they enlist and go through boot camp, they get, actually when the rank is higher, you'll get more pay than when you first.
It's probably like, it was one of our former cadets. We used to tell him, he ended up joining the Coast Guard and came back and visited. He said, now I finally understand what you meant about having that extra pay, but it comes out to it's about anywhere from 200 to 500 difference a month compared to when they've come out of boot camp compared to everybody else.
So actually this is a program if you're in high school and you are going to join the military to enter, because you're going to end up getting more pay when you enter the service.
And more rank.
Correct.
Just more, faster trajectory.
And that as well.
Yes.
And a lot of our cadets, when they do end up going to boot camp, are put in leadership positions because they already know a lot of the military. So.
Okay, what are you all aspiring to do? What
Actually,
you say? Yeah,
let me have some of them
I'll
come
be
up
happy
and-
to have them. Yes.
This is our Chief Desmond. She's the chief is the highest rank you can achieve in the Sea Cadets, and she's one of our 2. We have 2 currently. Our other one couldn't make it because he's doing his cross-country banquet.
Yes. Okay, your name and what school do you attend?
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Cadet Desmond, Chief Petty Officer. I go to Pine Ridge High School in Deltona, so about 30 minutes away from here. I've actually been in the Sea Cadet program for about 7 years. I've done over 18 trainings that range from MEA, mastering. I've also been to aviation because I want to be a naval fighter pilot. I actually want to go to the Naval Academy, so go Navy, beat Army. And we would appreciate funding for our program because we are nonprofit organization, and so that means we cannot advertise for our program. It gets very little, like, my apologies. It gets little, it's not very seen amongst our country. There's over 400 units between 2 U.S. territories, Guam, Puerto Rico, and all of the country.
Okay,
And you guys meet at Embry-Riddle?
So we actually meet at Embry-Riddle pretty often. We do our PRTs there, which is our physical readiness test. So we do our mile, our planks, and our push-ups. And then we go on to the Ponce Inlet U.S. Coast Guard base, and we drill about every 2 weeks. So every other week.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? We don't want you to, you aren't nervous. You're doing a great job. Just know that. It's very great. You're doing great. Because, so you may feel nervous, but you don't appear nervous.
Yes, sir.
Rock star. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments?
We have just
Yes, please. I like hearing from the young people. And this is an appreciated, we appreciate you all being here because seldom have we had an opportunity to be exposed to a program like this. It's a different program. We get excited up here about all sorts of programs with youth. But come on, next. Yes.
I would also like to thank
Oh.
Commissioner Miss Cantoon for her donation to our program, and we would be very appreciative of any other donations. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's what I'm talking about.
Good evening. I'm Cadet Norton, and I go to Spruce Creek High School in Port Orange, and I want to go into the Coast Guard Academy. So this is one of the best programs for that, since the Coast Guard isn't really known to have youth programs. And I want to be a helicopter pilot because it's one of my, I love flying, and I would love to do helicopters. But this program's helped me. I haven't gone to a lot of trainings. I've only done recruit training, but I'm going to another training over this winter break. But I want to do more into this program and get a higher rank, because I'm not very high up there now, but I want to get into the leadership.
Okay. You're on your way.
Thank you.
All right. Great job. Anyone else?
Thank you for letting me be here. My name is Cadet Caleb Altman, and I've only done 3 trainings so far. I'd love to do more, have more opportunities, and also me, Lewis, and Mansfield, we're also going to the same training, Honor Guard. We are just going up to Jacksonville. Sorry, I forgot the base. We're just going up to, Camp Blanding, yes. We're going up to Camp Blanding for the training. It will be about 1 to 2 weeks, and I'm hoping we'll have a great opportunity to have fun. And also, I did get to go to a Coast Guard station. It was awesome. Stayed there for a week to see what Coast Guard life is like, and it was the best thing I could ask for, and I wish I could go again.
Awesome.
How much is the camp for per student?
To go to a training per cadet, it's about.
Are you referring to the training or the program itself?
The training.
The training, our average is anywhere from $200 to $250. That includes room and board. So most of the time, when a parent sends their kids to a day program, you're looking about $700 or more. You're looking at our max, unless it's a specialty program like scuba diving, then there could be more. But our average is $200 to $350 for anywhere from 5 to 9 days.
And how many are you taking to this training?
Actually, it's not just from us. They're all over the country. Usually, like a specific recruit training, this is the first one that they have to do, the older ones. Just in one location can have up to 200 cadets.
How many are you taking?
Oh, right now we have, there's 11 that are doing trainings. We have the Honor Guard, we have POLA, which is a leadership program. We have RT, and the younger ones, it's age-specific training. So it goes from, like I said, 10 to 13. Even though it's the same training, it's done a little bit different because of just the age aspect of it. Now, as far as for a parent, if they want to join have their kids program, their first year is $235. It varies from different locations, but it's $235 a year, and then it's $210 after that. So.
Okay, I'm going to sponsor the 11 that are going for the $250.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it's wonderful.
All right, thank you. We got it. Well, thank you. One of the things I think that this community should know is you just have a body here that gets excited about young people. You are our future. Our posterity depends on you. Our freedom depends on your service and sacrifice, the commitment you've already made at a young age. Please know that you're honored. The name of your program is, again, what? The Daytona Beach what?
Naval Sea Cadet.
The Daytona Beach Naval Sea Cadet. And we realize at Daytona Beach, the name is important to us, that you have that name and that you represent our community when you go away. Although you may come from the broader community, we're one community here. And we support you all We embrace you, we cherish you, and we're behind you. Keep up the greatness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure. Just trying to make sure, you said it was 250 per student?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Times 11 students.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our second presentation tonight, which is the Sports Facilities Company's presentation of a multi-use recreational facility concept and operations plan for the city at 600 acres on West International Speedway Boulevard.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, earlier in the year, you all requested that we do a proposal in reference to a sports complex mindset on 600 acres that the city of Daytona Beach owns. One of the long-range strategic planning things that needs to take place to position Daytona Beach for the recruitment of athletic and tourism-related facilities through the expansion of our existing facilities and our properties was essential. And so we have a group that has come together to provide us with a long-term plan from a strategic planning standpoint on how do we position ourselves as a community. I'm working with the county, the state of Florida sports entities, and so don't look at this as an instant $50 million, $100 million, or $200 million project. This is something long-term that many of us may not be a part of, and Jeff Brown and others have participated in this strategic plan. So Jeff, I'll allow for you to make some comments and then bring the presenters up.
Thank you, Mr. Yager. In addition to what the city manager said, one of the things that we also was imperative was that the facility be useful and available to citizens as well when it's not being used for tournament activities. As part of the committee, we had Keith Willis, Vincent Terry, David Waller, Janet Kersey with the Daytona Regional Chamber, and Brandon Little, who is the Sports Business Development Manager with Daytona Beach Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dan Morton, Vice President of Pre-Development Services with the Sports Facilities Companies, who will make the presentation. And also with Dan is Kaylee Hinkman, our Account Executive. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to the presentation, and thank you for letting us be here and listen to us. I'm going to go through a lot of information and a lot of detail in a quick amount of time, so bear with me, and we're happy to answer questions as we get there. We're going to cover who we are, what we do, as well as our partners in this project in O Sports Design and Half Engineering, two of the leading companies in Florida for this type of design and engineering. We'll go through our process, how we came to our conclusions. We'll talk about design overview, facility program recommendations, cost, opinion of cost, development, and then we'll get into our financial forecast as well as economic impact analysis. This is, to the city manager's point, this is likely a long-term project that has a big number to it, which we're going to share. And so that has to make sure we've got an operational plan long-term for what this could mean for the community and if this is a right project for the community. And then I'll give you some examples of how other facilities have been funded and come together, and we'll wrap up with Q&A. With Sports Facilities Companies, we lead the planning, development, and management of youth and amateur sports, entertainment, recreation, and destination facilities. This is an example of some of the facilities we manage across the country, 4 of which in Florida. This is just a quick, you're not gonna be able to read everything here, but you'll be able to dive in. This is what we call concept to concrete. We'd like to give you an idea of what does it take, what's the time frame to get something like this developed. We see from the time that communities go from concept creation all the way to grand opening, it takes about 2 to 3 years. And as you can imagine, the biggest accordion in that time frame is funding and partnership development, because these facilities take a partnership on the public side for multiple public entities, as well as nonprofit, as well as institutions and private potentially. So I just want to give you some context of the length of the projects we're talking about. In terms of our process, I'm going to go through this really quickly. We start with definition success. And so we met with Jeff and the team that he described to make sure that we had good perspective from throughout the community and different organizations. We take what the goals are, which I'll share what we heard, and then we look at a lot of different data. And I'll go through some of that, but again, there's a report you can read and dive in further. But essentially, we start looking at the local, sub-regional, and regional market for demographics, socioeconomics, existing service providers, what the landscape is locally, sub-regional, and regionally here for sports and events. And we come back with here's what we think could create, if it could create, a destination here in Daytona Beach that could compete with what's already out there in the state as well as beyond there. So in terms of what we heard for definition of success, again, I'm not going to read all of this, but really focused here, and I want to make sure this is emphasized. The goal here is to create a project that is a sports tourism destination. What that means is it drives non-local visitation for tournaments and events, people who stay overnight, who spend in the community. And so we have to make sure it's big enough, it's competitive enough with what's out there, as well as an economic development driving asset. And so you heard, the goal also is for the community to have access, but when you think about location, size, cost to develop, those types of things, we're focusing on how do we create a destination, and then how do we then have community access as well. And so I just want to make sure that's emphasized as we go through how we looked at the market and tested this opportunity against the market that we see. Again, I'm going to go through this really quickly. Look at local, sub-regional, and regional populations. We look at where facilities need to land in order to be big enough to compete in this region in terms of number of assets, whether that's indoor, outdoor, or both. We look at industry trends. You'll see, and you've probably heard, but there's more information around about this, but in 2023, about $52.2 billion on sports-related travel spent in the U.S. What we've seen is that we've bounced back from the pandemic, and we've increased to beyond what it was pre-pandemic in terms of how many people are traveling, what they're spending, and the frequency that they travel. We also look at competition, as I mentioned. We look at regional and local. We've analyzed over 400 facilities in your market catchment area in that region, really assessing how they play with your current assets locally, but also how they could compete with what's out there in the region. And when I define region, most of the travel for a facility like this will be within a 4 to 6 hour drive time. Now in Florida, in a destination like this, you're certainly going to have fly-in traffic to tournaments, but the vast majority, again, from our experience in operating facilities here, most of the people are going to drive in and out. And so we're focusing on how do we compete with those other destinations. We also went through a community engagement and stakeholder process with quite a lot of folks within the community. Again, this is meant to be a sports tourism destination, but these projects don't work unless there's community benefit and access. And so we'll talk about some of those things. So I'm going to talk and show you the visuals that, again, O Sports and Half Engineering have helped us put together so we can give you some visual on what our recommendations look like. Again, these are test fits, right? So there are details here like parking and access and things like that that will be worked out if you choose to move forward further. But this is really just conceptually how the land could be used. And then we'll talk about indoor and outdoor as well as some renderings of those. So looking at the site, the goal here was to limit the amount of mitigation that needs to be done on the land with wetlands and things, to use that effectively as much as we could. So as you're thinking about where things are placed, that's really important in how this facility could play out. Our recommendations in order to be a destination, as we've mentioned, on the outdoor side, is a total of 16 outdoor multi-purpose flex fields that are all synthetic turf. These fields have different capabilities to host sports such as baseball, softball, soccer, lacrosse, football, and beyond, right? They're very flexible in how we can use them so we can maximize what we want, what we can drive there. A lot of our goals will be to be as flexible as possible so that you can respond to trends as well as maximize how much we can do in terms of visitation activity. So you'll see those fields there. There's an indoor facility that's about 200,000 square feet. I'll give you more detail of what that is. Primarily, that's an indoor court and event center. We've worked and looked and talked to the Ocean Center, understanding what they do versus what could be needed here. So that has been done, that process, to make sure that these are complementary to as opposed to competitive with what you already have. And then there's also a stadium. Now, when we think about the stadium, that stadium will have more of a limited sports tourism draw and opportunity. That's much more of a local focused asset, but that would potentially replace what you currently have where the high schools and the college plays. And so that's an option, right? Again, there's going to be options within this study. So we looked at that, parking, other amenities, and created a conceptual test fit. This is an indoor example. Again, this is 10 basketball courts that become cross-lined with 20 volleyball courts, almost 90,000 square feet of open, flat floor event space. It's basketball and it's volleyball, but it's also gymnastics, cheer, non-sports events. We can actually use this facility and use telescopic bleachers that come out and create an arena atmosphere. It's certainly not on the level of a professional arena, but it'll allow you to do seated events, championship games, concerts, potentially speaking engagements, graduations, those types of things. So again, creating as flexible of assets as we can to create opportunities for you to diversify how you drive visitation. This is renderings, obviously just some inspiration into what we worked through on what the indoor facility could look like. So I described most of the facility program, so I'm going to focus on cost, but I'll just give you an overview of the size of facility, Indoor, 200,000 square feet, 10 basketball courts, 20 volleyball courts. It also includes a sports performance facility. On the outdoor side, again, flexible fields that can host essentially every age group, every competition level for those sports that I mentioned, using flex fields and using synthetic turf. And then the stadium, which is about 10,000 seat stadium when we look at that. So in terms of acreage, it's about 96 required acres for that programming for the indoor and outdoor, and another 35 for the stadium. As you can imagine, a stadium, because it's a spectator-driven facility, that's going to need more parking. And so that's why that acreage is so big compared to what else we have there. In terms of cost, always the fun conversation. We've gone through and looked at what we expect it to cost, not today, but in the future, right? As I said, most of these facilities take about 2 to 3 years. So we're including cost of escalation, expectations for where costs are going to go. All these numbers are pulled from our experience on developing facilities. As you saw, our network of venues, we also develop facilities. We're developing them every day across the country. So we combine that with construction data and data from our partners to give you an opinion of cost for what we'd expect for this facility to cost to develop. So the indoor and outdoor, what we call the athletic complex, we give a range, but we'd expect that to cost about $134 million to develop. Really important point, that includes development of the actual physical asset, but it also includes the development of the operations. So you'll see in there's a line of soft costs for operations. So that's marketing the facility, building websites, going to trade shows, pre-booking the facility, hiring, recruiting and training staff prior to opening, so that this facility opens day one, ready to go, already booked. So that's in there as well. And then on the stadium side, it's about $34 million. Now keep in mind, stadiums have a really wide range of bells and whistles, right, in terms of cost. So we're looking at a mid-tier facility that could serve high school, university, college use, and potentially attract a pro team of some sort. That's not assumed in the model, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So in total, it's almost $170 million for the youth and amateur athletic facility. It's about $134 million, and the stadium is about $34. So in terms of summary performance, again, we analyze the operations internal to the facility as well as the economic impact that can be driven. A lot of detail here, small numbers. We look at every revenue stream that you can drive through the facility, whether it's tournaments and events, local programming like leagues, camps, clinics, rentals, or ancillary revenue like food and beverage, oftentimes one of the biggest and most important revenue streams to a facility like this, all the way through sponsorship, etc. One thing you'll see here is there's a couple zeros. Wanted to point that out. That is local programming. And so it's important to understand that this facility doesn't rely on charging, fair market value or exorbitant fees for leagues, camps, clinics. The goal here will be to partner with the organizations that you have on local programming, whether that's Parks and Rec, schools, nonprofits, etc., to utilize the facility when we're not utilizing it from tournaments. So are there some more specialized programming here like fitness and training, sports performance, things like that there is a charge for? But a big assumption here is that local programming is handled through partnership, and that is happening at cost that you would normally expect from Park and Recreation and what you currently do, but more programs, more facilities. The other thing I'll point out is from a stadium perspective, we want to be conservative at this time. So what we don't have assumed here is that there's a professional team. We don't know if that will be an opportunity. It could be with a stadium. And we also don't assume that there's a naming rights deal in terms of sponsorship, because that is a decision-making process that you would have to go through if you develop this. So keep in mind it is conservative there, but we forecasted between the athletic facilities as well as the stadium, getting to about $7.5 million in revenue. You'll see that 2.4 of that is food and beverage. And so this facility in the cost is assumed to be a premier destination within the sports tourism industry and have the ability to drive those types of revenues so we can limit operating subsidy as much as we can. We look at the expense side of the equation, cost of goods sold, overhead, operating expense. This is modeled as if this is a standalone facility. We know that actually isn't reality, right? If you go to develop a facility, there could be things you could leverage the city for, other programs, partnerships that could reduce some of this cost, but we want to make sure you understand the full picture of how much it could cost to operate a facility like this. And so that's how we look at it. The assumption here is that this facility is managed by a third-party operator, and so that cost is built in here, a professional company that can achieve sports tourism and has that experience, and that's an assumption within the model. And so punchline, as we look at revenue, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, we expect this facility as currently modeled to require a subsidy. That subsidy goes from about $1.4 million in operational shortfall to about $470,000 at maturity. Again, keep in mind, as I mentioned on the revenue side, We haven't reflected some of the things that could potentially improve this performance, like naming rights, like a professional team that's an anchor to this stadium. And we haven't looked at expense efficiencies. Again, we want to show you feasibility, conservative. This is what you can expect with the ability to potentially outperform this. Also keep in mind that with the price tag we're talking about, many of these facilities are phased. And so if we think about the assets within them, the stadium right now without a naming rights deal and without a pro team is a loss leader for this facility. And so there could be an opportunity, like in some of the facilities we manage, to right-size this a little bit, chop it up, change what we're looking at, and create something that doesn't require a subsidy. So we modeled it as everything, right, as that's what we're taxed to do, but I want to make sure that point is important as well. We'll talk about economic impact, speed up a little bit so we don't take too much time here, but we analyze what we expect people to spend per day that they're in market based on what we know to be true in our other markets, but using data from you all. So this is our proprietary formula that says we expect people to spend about $148 per person per day when they come to Daytona Beach for an event, for a youth basketball tournament, for a cheer tournament, anything like that. One thing that sticks out, you obviously can't get a hotel room for $45 in the lodging accommodations line. That assumes in our industry, we see about 3 to 3.5 people per room. So that's a portion of that cost. So as we analyze the opportunity for this facility to drive tournaments and events, we look at across the sports, we look at and research the inventory of what's currently here and what we think could be brought here based on how we've achieved things in other markets. We look at about 132 events right now between sports complex and stadium. So as you can imagine, that's a busy place, and so all of those operations have to be taken into account. But we think there's a really great opportunity if the investment up front is made and the investment potentially in operations to drive significant visitation and economic impact. You can see it broken out between sports complex and stadium in terms of non-local days per market. Non-local days, we define that as someone traveling overnight outside of 90 minutes. 90 minutes is the decision-making point in our industry, typically, that people make the decision to stay overnight or not. And so we're just looking at new visitation and new spend that we know will stay overnight. About 611,000 new non-local days in market at maturity. And that translates to about 156,000, 157,000 in new room nights brought to the market as well. We look at direct spend, so we take the average daily expenditure, we multiply that by the visitation. We expect there's opportunity for almost $100 million in economic impact on an annual basis for these developments. Keep in mind that is direct spending only, so that's the first money in the market. So if I spend $150 on a room night, that's $150 of direct spend. It doesn't include indirect or induced, what happens to that money after it goes to pay wages and things like that. Obviously, that will be an important impact, but we like to look at direct spend as it's the most provable thing that we can see, and I'll give you some examples of what our other facilities are doing. So it's great to talk about the cost, the operations, the impact. Obviously, that doesn't go directly into all of the to the city, to the county, or any of those. And so we also look at what's the tax revenue generation. In 3 areas, we looked at the county sales tax. County is oftentimes an important partner in these facilities. Based on 0.5% on spending, that's about $482,000 a year generated new that wouldn't be here but for the facility. We looked at the hotel motel tax, 3% and 3% for a total of 6%. And that's another, almost $1.3 million in tax revenue. And so about 1.8 million that goes back to the public sector based on this spend. So obviously a lot of that economic impact happens in private businesses, which is great, but we want to talk about what comes back from a city-county perspective. Just going to share with you a couple examples. I'll do that really quick, then we'll get to questions. This is a facility you may all be familiar with. This is Public Sports Park in Panama City Beach, Florida. They have 13 outdoor flex fields, an example of some of the fields like we've talked about here. And then they also they're in planning for an indoor facility as well. Keep in mind, we took into account existing and new developments as we looked at how could this destination compete and how we could differentiate the project. This project was a partnership between the private sector, development company, and a whole bunch of public entities, as well as FEMA and some Gulf Coast funding from the oil spill. That facility is an example of partnership and how these facilities come together. They also, or we manage that facility, went through this process. The funding mechanism. This was public-private partnership. Brevard County contributed $10 million. That came out of their tourist tax as well as their revenues for capital projects. And then they partnered with a tournament rights holder in the private sector to develop this facility. Paradise Coast, another one in Florida. We manage this venue. This will be fully built out. There's only 5 fields in the stadium right now, although a smaller one, 3,000 seat stadium. But again, partnership between city, county, tourism, and other locations. I think that's probably on the local use. Another example, Hoover Met Complex is in Hoover, Alabama. That facility is developed for sports tourism, just like the conversation we're having here. We manage that facility. Although they generate $70 million in economic impact, about 68% of the programming time goes back to the community at no cost. And the city owns that asset. We manage it, and they said, we want to give that back. And we said, okay, this is what happens to the operation, the P&L, and they said, great, we want to make that investment. So as you think about tourism, local, it doesn't have to be either or. Most of the time it's both and. Just wanted to share that piece for you. So thank you, and happy to answer any questions you have.
How far ahead do you book out the facility?
Yeah, so it's usually done on a year-to-year basis. On your pre-opening for a new facility, you're going to go out to almost 18 months. What has to happen, though, is that it has to be moving forward for tournament organizers to commit. And so we just have to make sure that that's all in line. But 12 to 18 months for a new facility, and then it's done on a year basis.
Any other questions? No. How do you come up with, can anyone tell me what $90,000 rooms? Did you say 90,000 in that one place?
That's where Panama City.
Panama City?
Yeah.
How much does 90,000 rooms benefit the CVB in our community? I guess that's it's an impossible question for us probably. But tell me that when you go back to your ivory tower and tell me what that sounds like and looks like to them. That's a lot of revenue.
Yep.
But I want to know what it is because I have no clue.
Sure.
And that's the purpose of asking CVB to help fund these type of projects if the rooms are coming in over the next 10, 20 years, if you all decide to start moving that way. Because as you know, when we first brought the project forward, you all did not want to do any new development at that property behind the First Step Shelter. So the whole thing about partnerships is essential from the CVB, from the state of Florida, from the county, to figure out how this becomes a destination. In other areas, they have pretty much taken some of the taxes to pay the debt service for municipalities each year to pay for the actual, if there's a loan or a bond, they'll give certain money over a period of time to help pay the debt service if the cities have to take out a loan, or if the private sector has to do the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any additional questions? It's a beautiful idea, and we all understand the reason that you have the idea. I do want to make sure that the community understands that it is an idea that will not come to fruition without a multitude of investors, not simply the taxpayers of Daytona Beach, but it's a great idea to expand the brand of Daytona Beach. Because we have the name, and as one who has traveled to many of the venues that you have listed, when I go, I only see cash registers moving. That's what I see. You know, every time you don't just pay to go to the venue. You go to Publix and the cash register moves. You go to the gas station and the cash register, go to the hotel, it just keeps moving, and that's what I see as a mayor when I'm visiting these spaces. And so ultimately, I think that's our objective in this community, is to figure out ways that we can get the cash register moving over and over and over again. So that's what it's about, and to provide a quality experience in a quality, wholesome reason for people to come to Daytona Beach. So, any other questions? You have anything else that you think we should know?
No, I think you nailed it. It takes partnerships with a lot of different groups, oftentimes public and private. And so, you've got the numbers and the data now, and it's oftentimes a process to understand what those partnerships look like in the community.
Okay.
I'm curious, how many people does it take to, if you happen to casually know a number, how many people does it take to run that facility in terms of local employment or colleges, et cetera?
We can give you exactly what that is out of the data, but in general, if we talk full-time equivalency, a facility of this size is going to be in 150 to a couple hundred full-time equivalency. Of that, a lot is hourly wages, right? Food and beverage, concession workers, those types of jobs, and you're looking at 10 to 15 full-time jobs.
Mr. Manager, what is our next step in moving this type of project forward, and and reminding people that we're not rushing, we just want to do things, right?
Yeah. This affords the opportunity for staff to start meeting with some of those potential partners to gauge their insight and see if there is an investment, but also to tailor the different opportunities from indoor facility, outdoor facility, football stadium, baseball or softball, what's the best interest based off surveys we're receiving also from the Parks and Rec Master Plan, and to see if we do have partners and bring that information back to you all once we're able to decide if there are partners from not only the Volusia County, but from outside entities that have contacted us about wanting to run like baseball programs and getting contracts. In other cities, we found that there are groups that have said, if you build this in 2 years, we will guarantee you that we will bring our tournaments to your area for 5 or 6 years, and we'll see that in contracts. And so we're going to talk with different partners who may be interested based off what we have for that property and be able to bring back to you all in a way that will be able to activate the space or not, depending on from a financial standpoint, because as a city, we have been doing many projects that from getting loans or bonds for different projects. So we don't want to put that burden, as you stated earlier, on the taxpayers, but really find partners to help make this a tourism destination from the county perspective. It just so happens to be in Daytona Beach.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. We're going to move on to item number 7, which is citizen comments. During this time, citizens have the opportunity to address City Commission on any item on the consent agenda, and I don't have anyone who's signed up for the consent agenda. So I just need a motion and
To approve.
to approve the.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, and we have a second, and we have a silent public on the consent agenda. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 9, which is our public hearings and quasi-judicial hearings. Item 9A is Code Compliance Residential Rental Registration Program. This is an ordinance on second reading public hearing. An ordinance amending the City Code of Ordinances to create Article 6 of Chapter 26 relating to residential rental registration program in place of the recently repealed rental licensing program, establishing an annual registration program that applies to all owners of 1 through 4 residential rental units, establishing a voluntary inspection program for registrants, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner May.
And I don't have any members of the public that have signed up to speak on this item.
All right, do we have any questions or comments? All right. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Moving on to item 9B, it's a Growth Management Planning Department, Dowling Court, York Court, right-of-way vacation. This is a resolution public hearing. A resolution vacating the Dowling Court and York Court right-of-way, generally located southeast of the intersection of North Ridgewood Avenue and Bay Street, repealing all resolutions or parts of resolutions in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Have a motion and a second.
I do have Jessica Gal here on behalf of the applicant for any questions.
All right. No questions. All right, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, moving on to item 9C. It's a growth management planning, executive storage annexation. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading public hearing. An ordinance annexing into the city of Daytona Beach approximately 4.20 plus acres of land located generally on the west side of Tomoka Farms Road, south of International Speedway Boulevard, and across from the Daytona Fleet and Farmers Market, redefining the territorial boundaries of the city of Daytona Beach to include the property, redesignating the boundaries of Zone 4 of the city of Daytona Beach to include the property, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Commissioner May and a second from Commissioner Strickland. No questions. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries 6-1.
And the second public hearing and final action will be held December 18th. Moving on to item 9D, it's Growth Management Planning Department, Terrace Avenue Homes Bring Hope, Plan Development General. This is an ordinance on second reading, quasi-judicial hearing. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 0.74 plus or minus acres of property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Bellevue Avenue and Terrace Avenue from single-family residential 5 to Plan Development General, approving the Terrace Avenue Homes Bring Hope Plan District Agreement to allow for development of a 6-lot affordable single-family residential subdivision, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, approving the preliminary plat for the Terrace Avenue subdivision, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner May and a second from Commissioner Reed.
And I do have speakers on this item, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker is Leslie Thaxton, and on deck is Ann Ruby.
Where is this parcel? He's coming up here.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Les Thaxton. I live at 859 Terrace Avenue, and I'm not either for or against this development. I have I think a safety issue based on our road. Our road is 18 feet 6 inches wide, paved. The documents they gave us at the neighborhood meeting that we originally had shows a 30-foot right-of-way. Well, there may be a 30-foot right-of-way, but there's not 30 feet worth of car space on there. So my concern is if the fronts of these buildings are all facing Terrace Avenue, which they are, where are guests going to park? They're going to park on Terrace Avenue. That makes it a one-lane road. And that's a one-lane road going out onto Bellevue Avenue. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the traffic on Bellevue Avenue, but it gets pretty hectic out there. And so if there's a car parked there, we have a one-lane road and I'm trying to get out onto Bellevue. I can't get out because there's traffic that wants to get in. And so I brought this up at the first meeting, and they wrote notes from the neighborhood meeting. They wrote notes and they sent it to Mr. Merzak. And I went to the planning board meeting and I brought it up there, and nobody paid any attention to it as far as I can tell. At least nobody got back to me. But I think we're just looking for a wreck to happen, and I just want to make sure it's not me. So they need to do something with the parking. Either put it in the back, get one of the units and put it in there. But to have them parking on our road is just not. And oh, by the way, the rest of the street doesn't have much difficulty with this project. The guy next door with a single family house, he doesn't like the idea that they didn't want to put anything between him and them. So he asked for a fence, they said no. So that's all I got to say.
Okay. Our next speaker is Ann Ruby, and then I do have Jessica Gal here on behalf of the applicant.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. I have to agree with Mr. Thaxton's concerns. It seems like it's great that this project is coming forward with 6 affordable housing units. That's fantastic. But it seems like there could be more thought placed into where visitors are going to park. The back alley isn't wide enough to really allow parking back there. People typically might not be parking in their garages, so their driveways won't be available for parking. If Terrace Avenue isn't wide enough for parking, then you need to put no parking signs on Terrace Avenue. And then how does the rest of the street feel about that? So, you could take away a townhouse to allow for more parking. You could squish them, a single-family unit, squish them together, although I understand the residents didn't want that to be townhouses, but they're only 5 feet apart, which seems like a way to grow mold, in a 5-foot space between houses. I just think that you're approving a project in a living condition that isn't going to work in the future. So unless we're going to have really fantastic bus service and nobody's ever going to drive a car again, or everyone's going to just drive little tiny cars and not big trucks. Anyhow, I think it needs more thought. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Jessica Gavakop, Law Firm, 1 Daytona Boulevard. We did hear those concerns. It is a 30-foot platted right-of-way owned by the city. The product that you see in the packet is alley loaded. So the fronts face Terrace Avenue, which is a city roadway. There's rear access to all of the units with a 2-car garage and a full-size driveway. So that is where the units will be accessed, very common in rear-loaded product. We're not opposed to signage within the right-of-way. It's the city right-of-way, so we can't do it, but we're happy to work with you guys on that review and any safety improvements. But it will function like any typical rear-loaded product with guests and everyone entering from the rear of the home. So, with that, here for any questions.
Can I speak to Dennis?
Dennis Mrozek, Planning Director.
My question is, can we put no parking signs?
Well, I'm sure we could, yeah, along Terrace Avenue, absolutely.
Okay. Can we make that part of the agreement?
I don't see,
It's not the agreement because it's our.
Well, can we add that? How can we do that? Tell me.
We direct staff to do that.
Okay.
And then we do it.
Okay, on approving this, I would like to direct staff to.
Sure, well.
And if everybody's in agreement.
You good?
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Did they ask the citizens if they wanted that?
So the concern was raised at the neighborhood meeting about the right-of-way. We went over the width. The same concerns were repeated at planning board, and we kind of went through the options. The planning board didn't have a raise of hands for residents or anything, but I think we do have a few here. You want to field that?
Mr. Paxton lives in that area, and he's indicated that,
No parking signs would be okay?
yeah.
No parking from here to the corner or something like that, because they're all going to park
If I may,
You got that?
this is city controlled, right? So if you post the signs initially and they turn out not to be needed or not what the neighborhood wants, you can remove the signs and allow parking. You can require it today and not require it tomorrow.
Precisely. Yeah. And that's why it's not an agreement between them, it's up to us. We decide. Okay.
Mayor?
And the expectation, I believe, has been stated, so the staff knows that when they have the groundbreaking, which we all hope to attend, that the signs will also be out there at that time. We don't want to come back later and have the problem. So just know that when that happens, groundbreaking, you already got the signs, neighborhood is ready to go. Okay?
Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to know, are they going to be rentals or are they going to be for sale?
For sale. So this is with, the Home Spring Hope program for home ownership. Yeah.
Is that it? Well, we should have a little more excitement, shouldn't we? This is what we work for, right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Home Spring Hope. Keep bringing hope to the community. We appreciate you all. Yeah, hope. What is my motion?
We had a motion from Commissioner May and a second from Commissioner Reed.
All right, got a motion, got a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
We're now going to move on to item number 10, which is our introduction of ordinances. Let's see. Item 10A is the Growth Management Planning Department First Amendment to Project Delta West Plan Development Redevelopment. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 0.86 plus or minus acres of property generally located southeast of the intersection of Bay Street and Ridgewood Avenue from RDD3 Redevelopment Downtown Commercial to PDRD Plan Development Redevelopment, approving the First Amendment to the Project Delta West Plan Development Redevelopment Agreement to incorporate additional property and revise the development plan, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the First Amendment and providing an effective date. And are there questions or comments from the commission on this item? Okay, the public hearing and final action is set for December 18th. Moving on to item 10B, it's the Growth Management Planning Department, 932 Mason Avenue, PDG rezoning. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 0.28 plus or minus acres of property generally located north of Mason Avenue, approximately 400 feet east of Nova Road, from Business Retail 2 to Plan Development General, approving the 932 Mason Avenue Plan District Agreement to allow for the expansion of an existing legal non-conforming veterinary clinic use, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing an effective date. And are there questions or comments from the commission on this item? The public hearing and final action is set for December 18th. Moving on to item 10C is the Growth Management Planning Department Executive Storage Small Scale Comprehensive Plan Amendment. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance adopting a small scale comprehensive plan amendment in accordance with section 163.3187 of the Florida statutes, amending the future land use map designation of 4.20 plus or minus acres of property located at 1464 Tomoka Farms Road from County Activity Center to City Mixed Use, amending the future land use element neighborhood U development policy to allow for limited development of self-storage and accessory office uses, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And are there any questions or comments from the commission on this item? The public hearing and final action is set for December 18th. Moving on to item 10D, it's the Growth Management Planning Department Executive Storage Plan Development Rezoning. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 4.20 plus or minus acres of property located at 1464 Tomoka Farms Road from Volusia County Rural Agricultural Center to Plan Development General, approving the Executive Storage Plan District Agreement to allow for development of storage facility, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And are there any questions or comments from the commission on this item? The public hearing and final action is set for December 18th. Moving on to item 10E, it's the Growth Management Planning Department Planned Development of the Land Development Code Text Amendment Extension Process. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending section 3.4.f of the Land Development Code to limit plan development extension requests to only plan development agreements that have not yet expired, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And are there questions or comments from the commission on this item? The public hearing and final action is set for December 18th. Moving on to item 10F, it's the Growth Management Planning Department Banfield Pet Hospital PDG rezoning. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 0.92 plus or minus acres of property located at 2510 West International Speedway Boulevard from Chili's Plan Development to Plan Development General, approving the Banfield Pet Hospital Plan District Agreement to allow for the redevelopment of a vacant restaurant building into a veterinary hospital, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And are there any questions or comments from the commission on this item? The public hearing and final action is set for December 18th. Moving on to item 10G is the Growth Management Planning Department Bayless Digital Billboards Land Development Code Text Amendment. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending section 6.10.J.2.C.III of the Lands of Illinois Code to allow for an existing non-conforming billboard to be replaced And H is the Growth Management and Planning Department. Remove prohibition to food pantries in redevelopment areas. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending section 5.2.b of the Land Development Code to remove the prohibition of food pantries as an accessory use to places of worship in redevelopment areas, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing effective date. And are there any questions or comments from the commission on this item?
What will be in
Buy houses of worship. Is this something we're doing, pursuing? My apologies. This is a repeal of a current prohibition on operation of food pantries by houses of worship in redevelopment zones.
Could you define food pantries? Are we just handing out groceries? Are we providing hot meals? What are we doing there?
It's not prepared meals or meals for on-site consumption. It's boxed or canned prepackaged goods.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Commissioner May, I think that's why we agreed to it, because it was dry goods. There's no line for hot food.
Sorry, I misread it for a second. I was a little bit confused there. Thanks.
If there's no other questions or comments on this item, the public hearing and final action is set for December 18th. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 11, which is our administrative items. Item 11A is City Manager's Office Historic Preservation Board appointments. It's a resolution appointing 4 members to the Historic Preservation Board for a 3-year term expiring April 14, 2027, and providing an effective date. So the terms of Thomas Mikowski, Fernando Neves, and Joseph Vetter have expired, and all would like to be reappointed. And there's a mayoral appointment that is open. And we have the following applications: William Chapin and Kelvin Tanak. Okay. And did you want to reappoint Thomas Mikowski for the architect? I believe is that a mayoral? Or is that just a nomination?
The architect position's taken. Somebody else who happens to be an architect would just be taking, whatever that zone or at-large position is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I'd like to reappoint Joseph Vetter for Zone 6.
Okay. And Commissioner Strickland? Okay. And then can I get a motion to reappoint all those members to the board?
So moved.
Okay, hold on one second. So who was the motion? You? Okay. And May was the second? Okay. So I have a motion and a second.
Okay. That's Speaker?
No. That's it's at the end.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. So we're going to move on to item 11B is the City Manager's Office Planning Board appointment. This is a resolution. Let's see, appointing 2 members to the Planning Board for terms expiring December 31st, 2028, and providing an effective date. The terms of Michael McLean and Tony Bahu have expired, and both would like to be reappointed. We also have the following additional applicants for Zone 4, which is Michael Chambliss and Scott Keene. Commissioner Cantu?
Yes, I'd like to reappoint Michael McLean.
Okay. And then the
Tony Bahu to be reappointed.
And then if I could have a motion to reappoint those.
So moved.
Okay.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Then item 11C was continued, so that is our final agenda item.
All right, tonight, who was?
Start
who
with
was the
Commissioner
first?
May.
Commissioner May?
Very simply, I'm looking forward to the week of festivities, the month of festivities that we have planned, and I hope to attend many of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cantu?
Yes. I actually just have a few things. Last commission meeting, we spoke on regards of the budget, and Mr. Gross was going to look into that, what other cities do about transferring money from one account to another for more transparency and accountability. So when we're approving the budget, we know what we're approving up here. And if you could explain a few of the things that you researched on there?
Sure. And I wasn't, I think I'm on now. Yeah. I wasn't able to get a memo out to you, Commissioner Cantu, until today, and if the other commissioners in the mayor, you want a copy of it, I can provide that. I basically swam through Unicode and other code sources and picked out other municipal jurisdictions just to see how, if at all, they address the question of administrative transfers to budgets. We have a section 4690 of the code that authorizes the manager to transfer unencumbered monies from one place to another so long as they're in the same fund, which is what the Florida statutes allow you to allow staff to do. In terms of which cities I looked at, I looked at all of the adjacent cities in Volusia County, and then I selected, on a not very scientific basis, like a handful of cities elsewhere in Florida, mostly because I assumed they were at least the same size as ours. Although in the case of Vero Beach, it's just because I used to work there and I'm familiar with their code. So most of the surrounding cities, Ormond Beach, Port Orange, New Smyrna Beach, have provisions fairly similar to our own. New Smyrna Beach is a little bit more restrictive than us in limiting it to transfers within the same program or within the same department, whereas we just say if it's within the same fund, it can be done. Ormond is also more restrictive. Port Orange is just as broad as we are. And then, traveling outward, my take on it, and I can provide you this additional information by the memo that I was able to send out to Commissioner Cantu today, is that most cities have some form of an authorization for administrative transfer. There are some jurisdictions that at least based on my research, don't allow it at all, which means that all transfers would have to be approved by the commission, although as I explained to Commissioner Cantu this morning, it's possible that those cities have, by policy, without having to adopt an ordinance or resolution, authorized administrative transfers. So if we wanted to be sure about those cities, in fact, requiring all transfers to be done by city commission, I think the best thing to do would be to contact those governments and just verify that. But on its face, it appears that a handful of cities such as Melbourne, Palm Bay, Lakeland, among others, just don't allow any administrative transfers at all. And I can't evaluate for you the wisdom of that or the problems with that. But that's just what I saw. Again, that's a handful. Most cities allow some form of transfer. There were a few that allow fairly unlimited transfers and then require reporting, transfer and then report. Just let the commission know. And then Vero Beach.
What do you mean by reporting?
Well, you would after having done the transfer, you would report that transfer to the commission. I imagine there are monthly reports that are done.
Oh, okay.
And then Vero Beach was the only jurisdiction I found where by code there's an authorization to transfer subject to a dollar limit of $50,000. And quite frankly, I wasn't clear from looking at their provision whether that was a cumulative annual limit or whether it was a per transaction limit. That's just what their code says. I didn't find any examples of one of the alternative ideas that was kicked around at the last commission meeting, which would just be, instead of limiting the transfers authorized to a specific dollar amount like Vero Beach does, just requiring reporting. But again, there may be multiple jurisdictions that in fact require that, but only require it pursuant to a resolution, which I wouldn't have found since I was looking at charters and codes that you can locate on the website, on the web.
So I would be okay with either one. If $30,000, if it's over $30,000, it comes back before the consent agenda, or reporting if it's over $30,000. Either way, I'm fine with it. I just need to know what money is being transferred to what account and how much. And it should, residents should know this too. It's their money. And how can you sit up here and approve a budget? I mean, you're at home, you budget, you look at your checkbooks and everything, your bank statements. So how can you approve a budget when you don't know what's going on all year long? And then you get this big old book and you can't go through everything. You have to keep track all year long where money is being moved and how much. So whatever way the commission wants to do it, I'm fine with it. But we have to have some kind of reporting and know how much money is being transferred from one account to another account. And I actually think the auditor that we're going to be hiring, that will be working for us, it'll actually probably be a lot easier for her as well. And we'll be able to ask questions. Why was this money moved to this account?
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Can we pull a current report to see what was transferred so we could see what's being moved, so then we can make a decision on amount from what account to what account? Is it department from department? That would be easier for me to make a decision.
That's going to be a lot of money. That's why I wanted to do a limit, because under 30,000, you're going to see a lot of transfers. And that's why maybe coming on the consent agenda would be a little bit too much, and I said you might have to raise it if it gets too much. But if you want to pull that up and give that to us, I'm okay to wait again.
I'm sure, that'd be something that staff would be able to provide. And in the meantime, I can pass the memo, the email memo that I sent to Commissioner Cantu today to the rest of the commission, so you can look and see what some of the other jurisdictions do.
And then we can make a decision on the 18th. Sounds good?
Yeah, I personally, thus far, prefer just a report. That's what I prefer. Just tell me what you did and maybe why you did it, and that's keep it moving. But yeah.
And I'm good with a report as well, as long as we're getting a once a month report, what's being transferred to what account.
So I can understand it, but I also understand in the broader sense of accounting, something's in a fund, it's generally close to what the expenditure was appropriated for, but a lot of times it's like, for me, this year we agreed to an expenditure that I hope that we don't spend. Well, I don't expect we will spend. So I want to know that next year that we can give the taxpayers a savings on that expenditure. But I need to be reminded of that so that the manager can't just go over there in his accounting and just move it to another fund within that same department, which he would be able to do. Which, normally it wouldn't bother me, but I know to be following this particular amount of money.
Right.
But I don't always know what I'm following, but I know what I'm following on that item. Okay.
And I would be okay with the report as well. I don't think that staff should be held up waiting on us to vote on something when they may have to do something, right then and right there. They do this all the time.
Yeah.
So a report would be fine with me as well. And we can question that when the report comes out.
I'm fine with that too.
Yeah. Okay, we'll hear from you on the 18th. All right.
So are they coming back, staff is, or are we just going to go ahead and just do the report?
Well, I thought you all asked them to come back on some information for
No,
her.
Commissioner Parris wants a
Reports.
Yeah.
I mean, she wants.
I just don't know how many transfers are actually being done.
We will bring the report back to you all, and you all can make a decision if the report meets your recommendations to come back periodically.
Okay.
Or if you want to send it on Monday or tomorrow. Just so we can look at it.
The staff members do work daily, so I can't tell you if it's going to come tomorrow or come Monday. They have consistent jobs.
Okay, but we'll definitely have it way before December 18th.
The staff will make sure that the report is provided to you all next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I understand. I do. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, sometimes you will get stuff like the last minute, like an hour before a commission meeting. So that's why I'm saying I want it way before, an hour before a commission meeting to look it over.
I do understand that's similar to the same thing with the memo in reference to the policy discussion you and Attorney Gross have been working on. Maybe if I would have had that earlier and able to work with the staff members, we could have done a little bit more research, because Natalia is a part of a finance group. I'm a part of a city manager group. I would have sent that information to the city managers and also said, could you provide the information for me? So those are the things that I think are important as well. If the staff can get that information, and not just between Mr. Gross and Commissioner Cantu, that will help us to do our job and provide the information earlier as well.
Okay, Mr. Gross, I thought you were working with Natalia.
I'd mentioned what you were interested in, but I didn't finish the list off until this morning.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And that was the first time that they'd had the opportunity to see the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next thing is the Bike Week Master Plan. I have a question regarding that. I keep getting a lot of calls from business owners, and I'm sure there's some other commissioners that might be getting some calls too, because I do have a neighbor that has a business on Main Street. And I'm being told that the city commission doesn't want any part of the Bike Week Master Plan. And I do not recall saying that not once up here. And I heard that, I don't know if this is true, that the whole master plan is being redone. And if that's the case, I hope it's going to come back before commission for a vote.
It would. Well, it would.
Huh?
I said it would. Can't
Okay.
be codified without it.
Right, but it was mentioned in a meeting with these business owners, it was not coming before the commission for a vote. So, Mr. Manager, is that?
That is totally a lie.
Okay, that's all I just wanted to make it clear so these business owners know that anything that involves the Bike Week Master Plan will be coming back before the commission.
Always do.
And Commissioner Cantu, if there was an issue or concern from a business owner, you know for sure I've sat down with your neighbor numerous times to rectify issues or concerns. So if there's issues that are coming forth from business owners that say that staff members who work with me are communicating that items will not come back to the commission, all you have to do is just contact me. And literally, I will say it right then and there, because these individuals, anything that has to do with the Bike Week Master Plan, as the mayor has said, it has to be codified and brought back to you all and discussed. But we hear from citizens all the time saying what they want. We put those as part of the notes and the minutes, but the actual plan has to be approved, not by staff, but it has to be approved by the elected body.
Okay, and did we ask you to move forward changing the master plan?
There were recommendations you all asked for in a workshop and in communications on the dais about bringing different options. We have placed those options into the master plan. They've gone through the Biketoberfest committee, the Bike Week committees that are assigned through the chamber, through the CVB, and all of those recommendations will be brought back to the commission to make a final decision before we implement any changes to the Bike Week Master Plan.
Okay. And I have talked to a couple of the staff members about this. I just want to put it out there in the public so all the businesses over there know that it is coming back, and I'm sure we will all copied on some emails regarding that as well. So that's why I mentioned it. Another thing, we have a whole group here from a residential area, which, could you put up that picture, please? They don't hear me. I mean, how many have heard of Ponce's Law?
Of course.
Huh? Okay, Debbie is the one that, could you stand up, Debbie? This whole group is here from, for this, actually, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up. Debbie's the one that worked with, well, now Senator Tom Leak with Ponce's Law, which is a law in the whole state of Florida, correct? Okay, well, we're having a problem here with one of the backyards. This is a neighbor that keeps taking pictures, supposedly. And can you, there's supposedly 2 dogs, one in the igloo and one in the tent. And can you tell there's, if you zoom in close, you see all the water? Okay. So I guess these ladies and gentlemen have been calling code, animal control, is it? And they say these dogs are safe because they're watered and fed. Does that look safe? Would you want a dog in that? Right, and there's a state law.
Dogs are not humans. So you can't, inhumane, it's uncanine, so I don't, I'm not one that's, that, dogs
Well,
are not
I'm
humans.
sorry,
And
I might be a little different too.
Hold it, I'm a pet respecter. I don't need to be wild. I'm just saying that dogs are not humans. They live in, and they have different habitat than people, but I'm not saying that that's something that I would prefer. I don't know what this is. What am I looking at? Yeah, please don't talk out. What am I looking at? Can you explain to me what is this?
You're looking at a dog that's in that, whatever that little
That's,
cage.
that's supposed to be a dog house?
Yes, and then in that little igloo, there's a dog living there. That never come out, supposedly. I don't know that for sure, but you can tell they're living in water.
They're what?
They're living in water. You can tell by
Okay.
looking in that picture.
So where is this at? That's my next question.
The address, do you have the exact address?
My computer died. So
Can I bring
Because
Debbie?
I'm thinking that it looks like, it looks like, I don't know where it is, but it looks like a place I've seen on Tarragona Way that got flooded, but I don't know where it is, so I want to
Okay.
know what is it.
Can I bring Debbie up instead of having every single person speak on this?
That's fine.
Okay, Debbie, will you come up?
Want me to say my name? Debbie Dorino, 6795 Calistoga Circle in Port Orange. Okay, so the picture you're seeing is over on Edward Street off of Mason Avenue. Okay, you know where that's at, by Nellie's Deli, right around that vicinity.
It's off,
It's
Brentwood.
No, like if you head
Mason?
east on Mason, it's on the right-hand side, almost across from Nellie's Deli. Yeah, right there.
It goes through to.
It goes on both sides of Mason, but it's 728, it's on the south side.
It's on the south side.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're looking at is all this water, and you're looking at it because these owners allowed their pets to sit through Hurricane Milton. I mean, that's what you're looking at. Now, I'm going to make a point. We all heard the story of Trooper that was hooked up to a fence during Hurricane Milton off of I-95. Governor DeSantis, when he found out about that, had animal control from Pinellas County go over to the rescue that had this dog and bring it straight to Tallahassee. He was outraged. They figured out who the owner was. He was charged with a felony, intentionally causing pain and suffering. You don't do that. And again, falls under Ponce's law. That's why I passed that law for reasons like this, because animals are no different than people, whether you think they're, not human or whatever you think they are. They have the same pain, they have the same suffering, they hurt, they're hungry, just like humans, just like people. They're just like children because they have no voice. They can't call on the phone when there's a problem. They can't drive to the hospital. They solely depend on us for their welfare. So this right here, for one, that's a felony. You left your animals out in a hurricane in water, okay? That water is in that tall cage. You can see it mirrored in the water, the cage itself. It's in there. That violates several things. Going into your misdemeanor statute, which is the 828.13, you have to have adequate palatable water, food. It has to be clean. That's not clean. The only water those dogs are getting are from Hurricane Milton. They don't have clean water in there. They're sitting in it. What if they have to go to the bathroom? They're sitting in it. Okay, so there's many parts of the misdemeanor and our own adequate shelter definition, which you know that Commissioner May and myself presented just a couple years ago that Daytona passed. So our biggest issue is getting animal control to follow the statutes, the ordinances, and not just tell us when we call, they're fine, there's nothing wrong. I had a girl that reached out to animal control and asked for them to check on these animals. I have the message, it was on social media, where she asked for them to go out and to call her. The guy that answered on the phone said, oh, they went out there and they're fine. They're okay. No, I don't think so.
So the dogs, because I don't see a dog.
Well, it's hard to see them, but you can see them.
Are the dogs tethered?
They're confined in the cages. They can't get out.
Cages.
Yeah. Yeah, 24/7. Now, this also brings up the question, is someone going in the yard? And the answer is no. This is a neighbor that lives on this street that took this picture from the street. It wasn't in their yard. It's visible from the street. So I know that people get concerned about, hey, don't go taking pictures. Animal control will tell us, they've told me, oh, if you see something like that, take a picture and send it to us. No, I'm not going to do that because your police chief said you can't do that. So you're giving conflicting instructions to not just me, I know better, but people that don't know better. You're telling them, go take a picture. I can tell you every person practically that's even complained about an animal issue like this, they've been told to go take a picture and send it to them. Come on. So I think there's an issue with animal control. I think they need maybe a refresher course or something on the statutes, the laws. Stop telling the public to do things that they're not supposed to do, and then turn around and say, hey, you guys are going to be in a lot of trouble for invasion of their privacy. Well, it's not an invasion of privacy. If you're standing in the road and it's a clear picture, I could say, hey, I was taking a picture of a bird. They just happen to be in the picture. You can see it. They're not, that's a neighbor that took that picture. But aside from that, it's an issue. That's a classic animal abuse case where, again, it's reported. Animal control doesn't see anything wrong with it.
So you're saying to me that animal control, because this is not today.
Not today, no.
This happened.
This happened.
Past tense. You're telling me that animal control saw this or was given this information, and their response was?
The response was everything was okay, except they're not up to date on their rabies shot. That's a requirement. Everybody has to have a rabies shot. So that's what they were concerned about, but not the welfare of these animals. It's not right. And so that's one issue right there. And that same issue applies to almost every time we call. I've had it happen to me. Call animal control. They don't call you back. You ask for an update. They don't call you back. Okay, they're busy. I get that. There's 2 of them. But at some point, you've got a whole community that calls on issues that they see outside in the community, and no one tells them anything. No one calls them back. Commissioner Cantu, I reached out to her about this. I said, okay, something you can do about it? She reached out to whoever she reached out here, and she said she would have them call her back, email her, and to call me as well, or email me as well, about this issue. And no calls. From the day before Thanksgiving up until Monday, when she called again, that's when she talked to whoever she talked to.
Actually, I asked for a call when I turned it in. I think it was the day before Thanksgiving. No, Thanksgiving. The day before Thanksgiving. Yeah. And I asked to receive a call back after they went out there and checked it. And I asked him, I gave him Debbie's number too, and said, please call Debbie and let her know, because I think it was another female that actually called in this report. I never received a call back. Actually, Monday, I called Ben to see what's going on.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Commissioner, I did not get from our call that you were specifically asking for a call back. I did transfer your message to the PD, and I didn't indicate in my email. I just wanted you to.
Right, yes. I actually talked to Code and asked Code to have them call me back.
So that's one issue, but like I'm going back to the crutch of the matter is when we call animal control. I've seen somebody mention the other dogs that were in a truck abandoned over there off of Mason Park, and did you hear about that one? There's dogs in the front seat. There's about that much room to even breathe, and a dog in a cage in the bed of the truck with no tag. Since May, the people in this community have been calling animal control about it, and they keep telling the people that call, nope, they're fine. I called Captain Gentry. I said, people are calling, they're complaining, they tell me, and I said, and did anybody go out there? What are we doing with that? He said, no, they went out there, they're fine, there's no problem. Really? Well, I saw in a picture the dog sitting with probably 10 piles of poop, okay? That's not adequate. That's not acceptable. There's no tag on the truck since May. And it wasn't until no, I'm just saying it's an abandoned type truck on the side of the road that's been there since May, that these animals have been in. Yeah, and it's not a doghouse. And so when I asked about it, I was told, no, they're fine, it's okay. No, it's not really okay. It violates many, again, of clean and you have to have a clean shelter to be in. You're not supposed to have your animals in poop. You know what I'm saying. I don't need to tell you again. And it wasn't until Jamie reached out to one of the news stations. And then all of a sudden things started moving. And one dog went to Flagler. The other dog went to Halifax. Happy now. Thank God they're happy. Clean environment. And why does it take this long? Why does it take a news station reaching out to them to get something done? This is not a once in a while thing. This is constant. You've seen me here complain to you. I try not to, because I've already told you before, I hate to keep telling you the same thing over and over. But when it becomes a problem and you see me up till midnight, 1 in.the.morning, answering all those people, why is this happening? Then I have to come here and say, why is it happening?
Well,
Thank you, Debbie.
The chief is here, so I'd like to hear from him.
Okay. Do you want me to sit?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, everyone. So, thank you, Debbie. I'm very familiar with Debbie. She recently emailed me November 26th. Never mentioned this. I guess she reached out to Commissioner Cantu instead, because all of this came about and was first brought to my attention in reference to that photo on November 27th. So if this happened during Hurricane Milton hit us in October. That was early October. And I'm looking at that picture and I agree. It's a disturbing picture of two animals locked in a cage and it should have been addressed. But my first notification was November 27th. So when we responded out there, of course, it's completely dry. And from that photo, you can see there's quite a distance between where the photo's taken and where the dogs are actually housed in the cage. So when our ACOs respond, they actually do an examination of the animals. They check the paws, they check other areas of the dog to make sure that the animals are not being neglected. So it never rose to the level of an animal cruelty investigation. And when we talk about Ponce's Law allows us to issue fines for $100 each time. So we've actually been back out there and we've issued several fines on that property, none of which were for the tethering law, but I wrote it down. Just give me 1 second. I have it in here somewhere, but moving forward, I also have like up-to-date photos of these animals that if I can pass these around or show you, I don't think these animals are not being taken care of. I don't think these animals look like they are being not taken care of. They don't look malnourished. They have food, they have water, they have shelter. So we issued multiple citations. We issued 2 citations for $100 each for the rabies vaccinations. We issued 2 citations for $100 each for the license tags, and we issued 2 citations at $100 each for the mandatory spay and the neuter. And all of this is at the same residence at 728 Edward Street. So I also want to just kind of go over some stats. So just to kind of paint a bigger picture, I have 2 full-time ACOs, animal control officers, and 1 part-time animal control officer that is responsible for all animal complaints in the city, not just dogs, all animal complaints in the city for 2.5 people. So 2 full-time animal control officers and 1 part-time animal control officer. And that's for all animals, not just dogs, for the entire city. So just to read you a few stats, for the month of September, they worked a total of 333 hours. They investigated 14 animal bite investigations, 25 dogs transported to Halifax Humane Society, 58 dog at-large investigations, 8 citations, and a total of 284 calls for service. That's September. For the month of October, they worked a total of 389 hours. They took 2 animal cruelty investigations. They investigated 10 animal bites, 18 dogs transported to the Humane Society, 90 dog at-large investigations, 3 citations, and a total of 292 calls for service. For the month of November, they worked a total of 334 hours. There were 2 animal cruelty investigations. There were 12 animal bites. There were 13 dogs transported to Halifax Humane Society and a total of 70 dog at-large calls and a total of 419 calls for service. And I can tell you, you have to be passionate about animals to be an animal control officer, and there is not one animal advocate that has done more and cares more about animals in this city than our animal control officers. The only thing I wish is that I had more of them. So if we want to open up a new division or department, I will hire everybody behind me that doesn't think we do a good enough job. I will hire everybody behind me to come on and be animal control officers.
I have a question, Chief. For a city our size, how many animal control officers is usually?
I honestly don't know. I don't know how many, if there's
Can we
another
look that
city
up,
our size,
please?
but that's something we can look at.
And that is not the only issue that we have.
Well,
We-
can you look, I'm asking you a question.
Yes, we can, but that I'm
Okay.
saying that is not the only issue that we have with the animal control. We're dealing with how we deal with the Humane Society to take animals to help us as well when we're dealing with that. So they're doing a lot more of trying to figure out, trying to find where an animal goes, because we have to pay a fee with animal control to house them also. So there's a much more, I'm just adding to the statistics that he said, when we do get more officers, there's another component, if we were to get it, that goes with what you pay as a city that residents don't have to pay. We incur those costs when we drop an animal off, regardless if it comes from a home or not.
And then there was another incident that was brought up in reference to a red truck and dogs inside the truck, and I'm aware of that incident as well. And that gentleman, the owner of those dogs, is homeless. We identified him. We was trying to work with him with those animals because he is homeless. And as we all know, it's not against the law to be homeless and also be an animal owner, because most of our homeless population that have animals will feed that animal even if they don't feed themselves. And that was a similar situation that was going on with this gentleman. And he, I think it was getting to the point to where he even felt like we were harassing him. And he mentioned trying to move to Ormond and questioned if he would have the same issue if he moved to Ormond with these dogs. But then finally, it did reach a point to where we tagged the car for 24 hours. We tagged the truck for 24 hours. I believe it was Sergeant Blowers. And when we went back 24 hours later to tow the vehicle, at that point, we had no choice but to seize the animals and place them elsewhere for their well-being. But it wasn't because they weren't being taken care of. I know the optics look really, really bad. I get that. I understand that. But these folks have to understand that our hands are sometimes tied with what we can do if it does not rise to the level of animal cruelty. If we're looking at the dog and the dog looks like they're in pretty good shape and they're not, suffering, there's only so much we can do with regard. So I know the media was brought up, and I know you guys know this. I don't move or not move based on the media. Like, don't threaten me with a good time. I enjoy talking to the media. So I don't, the media doesn't move me. We're going to do our job the best we can.
I don't have any other questions for you.
I do have a question. The picture was,
For David?
yeah, the picture was given to me the day before Thanksgiving, and I'm being told that picture was back in October.
The point I'm trying to make about this, the truck, the phone calls we continually make, and the lack of communication that we get back when we call. Are we not entitled to know what we're calling about? Or is there a process, or so we know why? Don't keep calling, don't keep asking what ever happened in this case. Because when you see a picture like that and you're told by the neighbor that these dogs are like this 24/7, they're sitting in water, obviously from the hurricane, whether it was in October or this month, the point is, when we call, we don't get a feedback, we don't get anything back from animal control. Is there a way to let the public know when we call, can you let us know what happened? Because this is going to circulate until someone tells somebody what's going on. Is this been taken
I've seen
care
it
of?
circulate,
Oh,
issues
for you to see
circulate
it. That's over
over
and
the
over.
years, over and over, that had been resolved.
Right, and it's not just
I
this
don't know,
dog.
but I think we also have to remember, he just told us, 2.5 people.
I know
They don't
both
have
of
time
them,
to sit
Mayor.
down and just
I know
call
both of
around
them.
and call.
You have reports, right?
Right.
Wait,
Should we just wait?
Okay, your time is up.
Chief. So you have reports right there, so can't they call in and get the report?
Yeah, I mean, anybody can do a public
Right.
records request and get any and all of our reports,
Right,
anytime.
because you just gave the report.
Right, and I think the problem is, because Debbie's saying that she doesn't get a response, they don't always like the response, because she said when they do get a call back, they're telling you that the animals are fine, or the animals are not in violation of the tethering law, therefore no further action will be taken. They don't like hearing no further action will be taken, so then we resort to the media or other things, or calling you when the emails start. But I mean, I'm just being honest with you. My folks are extremely passionate about this, so I have to be passionate in their defense. But I'm dealing with 2 people for the entire city, 2.5 people.
Right,
Like
I get that.
we just made an arrest. We posted it on social media a few days ago of someone who needed to be arrested for literally shooting an animal. And we seized 2 animals yesterday in a big drug bust that we did right over here off of Mason Avenue. So these folks are like, they don't get much, of a break. Like they're going from one call to the next call to the next call. And it's my belief that they are doing the best they can. These folks are not being lazy. They're going from one call to the next, to the next, to the next.
Well, I can say I didn't get a phone call back either when I specifically asked too. So I would really like to see our size of city. What do we have? 81,000. If we can look and see how many officers do we have that work this for animals.
I'd like to interject as a dog mom. You see those commercials all the time. What is it, ASPC or whomever? And that. When do they get involved? Because with only 2.5 people and you've got a city of over 82,000 people, I had a situation on my street and one of the dogs got loose and I listened to a neighbor to help her put the dog back through the fence and got nipped. So I took a video of what I saw and I shared it with my captain and he said, "How did you get this picture, Commissioner Reed?" I said, "Well, I was trying to help the dog get back in the fence, but I was on the people's property without permission." So he couldn't do anything with the picture. So I perfectly understand what you're saying in regards to what can you do. But I thought, we have Citizens Patrol to help with citizen stuff. Why don't we have an animal citizens control that can report things and help the 2.5 people to do something? Because we're out there looking and we care just as much as they do. Right. And maybe if there was a partnership between them and those who are willing to do something like that, more things would get done. It's just a suggestion.
Mr. Chief, could you tell me the numbers again for how many hours they worked in like November or October? What was it?
333 for September, 389 for October, 334 for November. I just asked for the last 3 months.
So close to 400 hours, right?
Right.
So if you look at that, that's a straight 40 hours per week per person, and then the 20 hours per week with your part-time person that they're working. So they are working nonstop 40 hours a week for these calls.
Correct.
There is no, we chilled out for an hour and a half here, or 2 or 3 hours. We sat in our truck and
And a lot of times we have to call them in for other things. Like if we're executing a search warrant, it may not have anything necessarily to do with animals, but if the persons, that we're going after have animals, they have to come out and take custody of those animals. So
yeah, it just sounds like to me that they're working at capacity, or even more so than at capacity. So that's all I wanted. That was my point, was that they're not dilly-dallying around. They're really out there working.
Chief, you said that you mentioned all the liens that you placed on this particular address that we're addressing. Have those liens been paid? Or there's usually a statute on how long it takes?
yeah, I don't know. I know the next step would be if they're not paid, then they can be issued a notice to appear.
Okay.
So I don't know what the time frame is for them to pay the fine, but I can find out and get back to you.
I don't need to know.
I do like the program that you brought up. So what can we do
Pet
to
Patrol.
start this?
Right.
How can we start this?
Is there an interest in it?
So
I'll get
you
with
would
Captain
need to have.
Gentry, yeah.
Okay. Is that something you would want to work with Mr. Gentry to start something like that? No, not saying you, but you have a lot of, anybody. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, I'd just like to see about maybe Debbie or someone getting the word out and see if we can start something, because we do have Citizens Patrol. And a lot of them live in my neighborhood, so it would be nice, because it would help them, because they look like, I mean, they are overworked, so. And that's it.
All right. Commissioner Henry?
Just a couple things, Mr. Mayor, and that is that on Saturday, you can join us for movie night at 5 p.m. at the stadium. We're going to be running it back again, Commissioner Cantu and I. We're going to have hot chocolate, popcorn, face painting, snow machines, and photos with Santa. That's going to be on Saturday. We're going to be watching the movie Elf. The popcorn, hot chocolate, and the face painting and snow machines are all free. There will be some additional things at the concession stand that will be $1. Wait a minute, I got a question about that. Any staff here to answer my question? Can you answer my question really quick? If the concessions are going to be $1, where will that money go back to when? Wait a minute, no, because I want to make sure, is the concessions coming out of the $6,000 that?
I don't believe so.
Can
we'll
you
have a
check?
breakdown, but your movie screen that you all wanted, a bigger movie screen, costs a little bit more. But I'll make sure the breakdown, if it's coming out of your money, we can put it back into your accounts.
Okay. Well, I really wouldn't like for it to be put back into my account, but I would like to maybe split half of it with a nonprofit or something going forward. I mean, I don't mind if the Parks and Rec gets half and then we find a particular nonprofit that we can give the other half to, because
They've done it to me.
Stacy, do you know if okay, so when we had the last movie night, did the candy and all of that stuff come out of, did we pay for that?
Yes, we did. Well, actually, not all of it, because.
What did
some
you
of
say,
that-
sir?
Some of that was.
Hold on.
my leftover.
Oh, okay. Okay, some of it was what?
Some of it I had left over from my event, my Halloween. But yes, we did pay for it. And I have done other events, like the Halloween and everything, and paid for the stuff. And somehow the money doesn't come back to us. It goes to Park and Rec. But I don't say anything because they are putting everything on.
No, I don't mind them putting everything on, but I would like to go maybe split it and maybe do something where we can support a nonprofit. Despite what Mr. Mayor says. He said a really smart comment over there, and I don't know what he said, but he said something really smart. Unless he wants to go ahead and pay for the candy for a movie night. Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing is I've just been informed that the Santa Run we're running Santa Run back this year. Santa Run will be on the 19th of December at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, and stay tuned and check the city's website for the route for the Santa Run. It's coming, and I'm hoping that this year we can maybe switch it up and go to some of the Zone 5 that we haven't been able to get to in previous years. And let's see. I think that's all my comments for tonight, Mr. Mayor. I hope that everyone had a wonderful and blessed Thanksgiving. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes, sir. Before I move on to my things, Commissioner Henry, I'd like to ask that you would ask staff to do better advertisement for the Santa Run. Because when I went on that last year, I was very disappointed that the people weren't out there and all that candy we had prepared and the police officers and the fire department, for us to bring all of them out and the people not know it's even going on, I thought that was a travesty. So we need to make sure folks know we're coming.
I agree.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Where shall I begin? Okay. Mr. Manager, in the last meeting, there were some questions in regards to Bethune-Cookman University and fees that they pay. I think folks thought that they didn't pay anything. And as a Wildcat, I asked you, and I'd like for you to share with us what they've been paying, please.
Yeah. I will, Natalia was sending me some of the invoices that have been paid, but I do have a number that about $206,000 for the past 2 years have been paid by Bethune-Cookman for the use of our stadium in Sunnyland Park and Bethune Point. This does not include the fees that they pay to the police department for their events, but they're going to give me all of the invoices that were paid and I'll provide them to the commission.
Okay, thank you. Peabody Board. Colleagues, please check your representatives for the Peabody Board. My person has told me that they have not been able to have a meeting because there's no quorum. So our folks aren't showing up. And first of all, let me give kudos to the Peabody staff because they've been doing an excellent job with concerts. Kool and the Gang, it was thebomb.com. Okay? And we've got some other great things coming, but we have citizens that are supposed to be helping to guide that process, and they're not being able to have a quorum. So we need to make sure that our folks are showing up. And Senior Oasis, Friday night. Thank you, Commissioner May, Commissioner Strickland, and Commissioner Henry for contributing towards the Senior Oasis prom again this year. It's Friday night at the Cherry Center. Begins at 6. And we're going to have a great time. It's an opportunity for our seniors to come out and to, as Mama would say, shake their tail feather and just have a good time. They get a meal, they get a DJ, they get to take pictures. And the Oasis is something that we sponsor year round, so it gives our seniors an opportunity to have a great time. And it's limited to those who participate in our Oasis programs, and they're allowed to bring one guest. Today I had an opportunity to attend. I was appointed by the Florida League of Cities president, Mr. Michael Blake, to an education and training advisory committee. And something was said today by one of the commissioners, and I want to read it. I wrote it down, and it said that if we're not growing as commissioners, or council people were there as well, we are doing a disservice to our citizens and to our council members by not engaging and growing. And now I know I talk to you all the time about the Volusia League of Cities, but the Florida League of Cities has a whole curriculum for commissioners to grow. And I know with the exception of Commissioner Paris, everybody's had a full term on this dais. But we don't know it all. And they have a complete curriculum. I'm going to copy this and ask the clerk to copy this so you can see the classes that they offer. For example, they have something called EMU, which is elected officials training. And they went through the history of the training, but we're building upon what they've already done because they haven't done anything since COVID. So this new training and educational class is going to help with that. But everything from we just had our our charter review. They had charter review on how should we do that. They're looking at cybersecurity, engaging residents on city issues, housing, mental health issues, recruitment, retention, technology, unfunded mandates, disasters, infrastructure, preemption, resilience, sustainability, revenue shortfalls, transportation. All these topics are being offered to us through the Florida League of Cities. And it's an opportunity for us to continue to grow and to be the best that we can be when we sit up on this dais. And going from there, I want to ask, and I'm not trying to be confrontational, but Commissioner Cantu, tonight, several times you've said that you've called Ben. Are you and the manager, we had that conversation with the two of you going to try to work on your relationship? Because I think if you were to call him, we would get more done when it comes to the questions that you have.
Are you finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I call Mr. Gross for legal matters, and Mr. Feature is usually always copied on everything when he comes back and gives me something. So the thing today, I'm not even sure if he was copied, but I know it was the last minute and I didn't even get to read it.
Okay.
But Ben usually copies on everything, but he's not our city attorney. He's our city attorney. So when I have legal
Oh, I understand
questions,
that, and
I
that's
call
what you
him.
should do.
When I have questions regarding the city, like he got an email about our facilities, that people are not happy, residents are not happy because we're doing classes for seniors in them, and they thought we should have it at the city library. Well, the city library is county, which I told him, and all of our facilities are where they are. So he got forward that, and actually I think it was Commissioner Paris's zone who this person was that contacted me at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. But when it's legal, I'm going to the city attorney.
As you should.
Right.
But I heard this evening when the manager was explaining something, what Ben didn't have an opportunity to finish.
I know you're going to sit up there and always protect him because
Can I
you like him.
finish?
No, you asked me a question
But-
and
but
I'm not finished.
and you've answered.
And tonight it was stuff that was legal. I was asking him.
And the manager responded and said, had you called him, he probably would have been able to get more of an answer for you. That's all I'm saying. And I started by saying I was trying not to be confrontational. I was just asking a question.
And I get it. But this was legal stuff I was asking.
All right.
Thank you.
So as the month continues, the Children's Christmas Party is on this December 13th from 6 to 8 at Jackie Robinson Ballpark in partnership with the Tortugas. And we're going to have a great time there. It's the second one we're having. The ages are from 3 to 10. And come on out, everyone, and have a great time. Followed by the City of Daytona Beach's Christmas Parade on the 14th. And that will be from 6 p.m. walking down Beach Street. So we've got great things planned for the rest of the month. And I look forward to those opportunities. And I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving.
Can I finish one? Ben, when I contact you, is it usually all legal questions I'm asking?
In those situations where the question's not legal, I either
You
encourage
refer-
you to
Right.
send the question to the manager, or I send the question on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just want to thank Commissioner Cantu for addressing my residents' need from Zone 1. If anyone has any questions too from Zone 1, I'm always available. My number is 386-214-3822. That's the cell number, so you can call me on that. And that's it. Thank you.
Light Up Main Street was a success from what I heard from the merchants over the weekend on Saturday. I too will be attending the senior prom and the Christmas parade. The master plan, from what I understand of the bike week stuff, has gone from like 4 pages to like 30 pages. I have no idea why. Rumors get started and they just snowball around here about stuff like that. Parking. I'm supposedly the godfather of the parking thing being expanded during bike week. That's not exactly true. I would also ask respectfully that everybody sitting up here receive whatever information is given to Commissioner Cantu, whether it comes from the city attorney, the city manager, or department head, just for the sake of us being as prepared to discuss these items as she is, or to rebuke what she has to say if we disagree with that. I think that there's been a lot of disrespect of the city manager. I think that the dog thing is in Zone 2, which is my zone. My phone number is 386-307-4253. Everybody in town knows it. Everybody in town knows where I live. Feel free to call me about stuff like that, and I'll be glad to help you. It's hard to help people when they don't give you the information. So moving forward, we need better communication up here with the city attorney, the city manager, and in the future, maybe we will be able to tend to the residents' business rather than sit up here and argue for 30 or 45 minutes every time we have a meeting.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone who came out tonight to, did I skip you again? I thought she went, she didn't say, she did go. She was first.
Okay.
All right, as we have entered the holiday season, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone in Daytona Beach who did a lot during Thanksgiving to express the spirit of Thanksgiving to those who are marginalized and disenfranchised in different ways. I'd like to thank those who came tonight to speak on behalf of animals who are not receiving the best treatment and best care. You are respected, and your vision for how animals should be treated is appreciated. We should always realize that we may have different perspectives or ways to get to an agenda, but in general, most of us have the same agenda, which is to do right by one another and to do right by all things that are within our community's purview. And I include animals to be a part of our community. And I would like to express my appreciation to staff. We have a staff that works very hard. And I don't mean that just from leadership. It's just from all avenues of our staff. They work really hard. And we have to remember as commissioners that when we give an assignment, that comes with work. So when we ask for something or ask for information, it requires someone to do that task for us. And so I don't take that lightly, because I ask them all week to do different things. I'm constantly calling and asking for someone to do something. So, and I realize that it's not a part of their normal job description. And so I just want to express my appreciation for that. So as we move into the season of the holiday season, I just want to express that we continue to engage in the spirit of community. And the spirit of community for me is one where we try to break down barriers and try to work to overcome differences and to have respect for one another. And that's something that I believe is expressed through positive, wholesome communication. I'd like to also express my appreciation for both the manager and the city attorney, and say that as we move towards a new year, that we remember that my first campaign was one city, one vision. It's very hard to get to that. And I was thinking about that the other night as I thought about our city and thought about moving towards the state of the city. I said I could run on that same theme 12 years later, because I think we as human beings are works in progress. And communities are works in progress. So let's continue to work towards being one city with one vision, meaning that we try to see out of a lens of humanity and let that be our bigger perspective. Mr. Manager, did you have anything?
Just one item. I was advised that the draft Bike Week Master Plan guidelines are on the city's website on the front page for public review and citizen comments. So
Okay.
if you have any individuals that just want to look at it, it is on the front page of the paper website. Letitia pulled it up right on the front page. You can see this first item. Any citizen can provide any insight on the draft plan for the Bike Week.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I want to say one other thing. I'm sitting here looking at my tablet right now. Anything that Ben sends out says city commissioners. And if you're asking about research, I don't always get my research from everyone up here. I go to people that I know that knows the answers, like state officials, senators. So maybe there's a few commissioners that maybe need to do their job, and then they would have the same information that I do. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to bring up the communication. At the end of last meeting, after the last meeting, actually, Commissioner Cantu asked when I would have the research done. I wasn't sure when I'd have it done. As you know, we had a Thanksgiving week coming up. And I did make the manager aware. One of the things I told both the manager and Commissioner Cantu in separate discussions is I shouldn't be the person to make any recommendations as far as what you're going to be doing regarding these budget transfers, because it's a policy question. And quite honestly, when Commissioner Cantu texted me this morning asking me for that memo, which I was still in the process of finishing off, I didn't really anticipate that it was going to be a formal presentation of options for you tonight, because staff hadn't had a chance to weigh in on it. I had a discussion with the manager and a discussion with Natalia. But I do agree with Mr. Strickland. In hindsight, I should have given that email to all of you commissioners. I don't typically send emails in response to single commissioner questions to all of you unless I know it involves commission business, but I could certainly, rethink those kinds of emails and make sure that you're all getting that information. Yeah.
That's fine. But I will say this. I have conversations with the city attorney that I am not ready for public discourse. So all that does is makes me have conversations that are then not in writing. Because when I'm ready to bring things to the commission, I'm going to bring it. But I don't necessarily want everyone to be privy to every conversation that I have with him, even though it's public record, and I know that when we communicate by email, I know it's public record. But I think he kind of knows in general which items to send. But if you want all of the items, it's your right actually to ask for that. I do believe that it is. You do have a right to say share it all. But for me, it's not all going. I'm just being honest with you. If I have a conversation, I'm not ready for it to be in public, I'm not going to have it in email now. It'll just be by phone.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. I mean, I work for all of you, and it's
Yeah.
not my position to advance one commissioner's interest over another's.
Exactly.
And I'm also aware that under the Florida ethics rules, unless and until the commission speaks and makes a policy decision on matters of policy, the manager is usually the face of the client, unless and until that decision is changed by the commission. So I try to keep the manager informed, and I do let commissioners know that fact when I have a concern that I might be getting out in front on policy, because it's not what I want to do. It's not my lane.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No further comments. At this time, we'll hear from the citizens and residents of the community.
And before we do that, I just want to remind everyone that the schedule for the city commission meetings have changed for January 2025 due to the holiday. So we're going to be meeting on the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday of that month. So that's January 8th and January 22nd.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for that reminder.
Sure. Our first speaker is it Shiva Wild? And on deck is Michelle Weiss.
My name's Cheryl Wild, from Port Orange. First, I want to bring up, I was hoping the animal control officer was still here. Your animal control officers are calling rescues throughout the county because they do not want to pay Halifax the $120 it costs per head to intake. So they call us. Meanwhile, we are bearing the cost of it. So you're asking why we're not helping? We are helping. We save you guys thousands of dollars a year. It's not costing you a dime. And we get treated like dog meat. You should not be able, your employees should not be able to go around paying that $120 to Halifax, because we also pull from Halifax, but then they're responsible for the vetting, the vet, the shots, the getting them fixed. So by them calling us, we have full-time jobs, we have families, we're not even in your city, but we do it. I'm Integrity Cat Rescue, but a lot of rescues do that. We try and stand together and say, no, we're not going to do it because it's not right. You guys are circumventing what's set up in place, costing us money. But when there's a kitten that's going to die, if it doesn't get help within 4 hours, what do you think we're going to do? Also, as far as you're building these big apartments that the people were just here talking about, I don't know how many, is it 400 apartments? 300 apartments? You have that many more people. Your ACOs cannot handle half of what's going on in your city right now. You have so many cats that aren't fixed because you don't have anybody to do your TNR programs. We try and help, but it shouldn't, we're not paid for it. It costs us money. Your whole animal control division is messed up and it needs to be fixed. When you start opening up, this was not my idea. This was another rescue's idea. Instead of just requiring apartments to get rabies, proof of rabies, it's a law. They're supposed to be fixed. They're supposed to be spay and neutered. If every animal that was spay and neutered that went into an apartment complex, this way when the people leave and throw them outside, which is what 40% do, there won't be kittens. This I know it seems very small to most of you, but this is a huge thing. And it's just going to get bigger unless you guys look at it and do something about it. Thank you.
I spayed 7 and I feed them every day, and I'm a dog owner. I'm the dog mom, but the cats love me.
So our next speaker is Michelle Weiss, and on deck is Darlene, and I'm gonna Kochendorfer? Kochendorfer. Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Scratch that, and I just want to say this whole issue with the animal control, nobody's saying the animal control is not doing their job. We respect what they do. I think this whole thing got turned into one case, and that's not what it is. There's many cases they're not responding to. They're not letting us make a report about an incident. They're turning us away of filing a police report. We can't even do that. So it's not just that one case. There's a dog at 610 School Street that's sitting in a kennel with no food, no water. The people take him out, feed him, give him water, put him back in the kennel. He's not supposed to be left in the kennel without food and water all the time. It's not just that one case, it's multiple cases. The truck case that Jamie got involved with, we're helping a homeless man, but do we help him by letting the dog stay in that truck for 7 months before we do something? 7 months is a long time for an animal to live in a kennel inside the bed of a truck. And there's another one on Michigan Street, tethered 24/7, no matter what temperature it is. It's not just that one case, it's many. And we've all been to the police department to make a report. They're turning us away. Isn't it our constitutional right to make a police report as long as we're not giving false information? They're not investigating the cases. It's more than that. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Darlene, and I'm gonna let you pronounce it. And on deck is Debbie Denario. Dorino. Okay. Debbie, Julie Thompson, then?
I believe she left as well.
She's here? Okay.
We let David speak for 20 minutes.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak. My name's Darlene Kochendorfer, and I run Port Orange Cats. Some of the issues, I know what they're talking about. It appears to me that we have 2 animal control officers in Port Orange with residents of about 65,000. You have close to 90,000 people. So maybe it's time to get a third ACO. Just a thought. What Shira was saying, I'm a rescuer and a trapper. I work very closely with the city of Port Orange and their animal control department, and it works pretty well. They utilize their volunteers. You have hundreds of volunteers out here that are trapping, that are rescuing, putting their own time, their own dime, and they're willing to do that, and they're working for free for you and for your residents. You might consider putting together something like an advisory board for your animal control department. Utilize some of your volunteers. There's some retired folks out there that would be happy to work with them. I work with our animal control officers. I got them on speed dial. They got me on speed dial. You know, I try to help arrange appointments for our residents for TNR. And then that way they can all be brought to my house and animal control can pick them up in one spot. Just kind of makes a little bit more sense and it makes it easier on them. So it's just food for thought.
Our next speaker is Julie Thompson, and on deck is Darius Kelly.
Hi, good evening. My address is 49 Pinto Lane, Ormond Beach, but I have been a volunteer trapping and neutering animals here in the Daytona Beach area for over 10 years, working with animal control. One of the things I see as a big issue, our animal control officers are not armed. They're asked to go into different areas where people are worked up quite a bit when somebody's coming to talk to them about animals and how they're being cared for. So generally, an animal control officer has to wait for backup police to come with them. I know a lot of other animal control departments that their officers are armed, and I think that would be something that might be considered in the future to protect our own officers. When I'm calling in, there's a new system to make calls about concerns with animals, and it seems to be going through the Volusia County Communications Department and then coming back to the police department. When I call in to follow up on a case, they're telling me that everything is taken care of, but they're not following the ordinance that are in place. And so when I call the police department to get the record, it's being logged, but often it's a general police officer going out and then they're deferring to animal control. So there could be days in between something actually being taken care of. My question too then would be for the attorney. Animals are listed as property in Daytona Beach, and I feel that just makes it okay for them to be discarded, where maybe if we gave them a true definition of a living, breathing soul, perhaps they would warrant more clout to be taken care of at a higher standard. And again, I agree with everyone else. We have wonderful animal control officers in Daytona Beach. I work with Officer Priest and Officer Lee very closely. They do an amazing job, but they're only two people. So I really think that as the city grows, it would be very warranted to add to that department. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Our next speaker is Darius Kelly, and on deck is John Nicholson.
Good evening. Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, other members of the dais. My name is Darius Kelly. I live in Ormond Beach. And I'm the founder and executive director of the Dwally Foundation. Dwally is an acronym for Daddy Will Always Love You. And we help single dads be active members of their children's lives. It's our goal, it's our mission. Many of you have probably seen a couple of emails from me about the event we're having. But before I get into that, I just want to kind of share the voices of some of the individuals that reach out to the Dwally Foundation for help. I'm a single father. My ex-wife has filed multiple CPS accusations against me 9 months without seeing my autistic children, who was mentally being destroyed. I'm a business owner battling depression and PTSD. I'm suffering to the point of not being able to afford legal help and assistance. I need help. These are fathers that are reaching out to the foundation. I'm a 41-year-old. I came to the United States in 2014 from Iran. I've been separated from my minor children, 2 and 4 years old, for the past 8 months due to an argument I had with my wife. She called the cops. I was arrested. I'm devastated. I need to know how to get legal help to see my children again. Good afternoon. Need help getting access, visitation rights for my kids. Please help. So this is what our foundation does. We help with financial assistance with these gentlemen, legal guidance, and community resources. There's so many more notes like this that you can't think of. For those of us that are fathers, we know how important our children are to us. And for men to be out there that want to be a part of their lives and they just simply can't, they need help, and there's tons of them. So I am having a Fathers Matter Festival on December 14th at the Charles W. Cherry Center in Daytona Beach from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we're just going to celebrate fatherhood. It's free to the community. Fathers can come out with the children. Mothers can come out with the children. There'll be some speakers there to pour into the fathers that need help, to motivate them. We want to try to close that gap between those who have those fathers that want to be in the children's lives and they can't. And that is our goal with this event, is just to bring attention to that. And parental alienation is one of our main programs for this foundation. I could use some financial assistance. We're about around $15,000 short on the event. And also we're looking to build a hub for fathers in the Daytona Beach area so they can come and get these resources.
And Mr. Kelly, I know someone from our finance department reached out to your organization to get some additional information for the donation that.
Yes, I did respond to them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Mr. Kelly, how long has your organization been in existence?
So we just started last year.
Mhm.
We got our 501c3 this year, or at the beginning of this year.
Okay.
So it's a pretty new organization. And like I said, parental alienation is our main program that we're building right now. But the progress we've made, and this is nationwide. I mean, these letters are coming from all across the country because this is really gaining momentum. So we're looking to really make a difference in some of these fathers' lives. And I do want to thank Mr. Fiecher and Commissioner May for responding to my email and sitting down and discussing it with me. I know everybody's very busy and not everybody can respond, but I appreciate it too.
How many fathers have you all helped so far?
So far, there's been approximately 40 fathers. Now, we get a lot of notes where people are just saying, hey, I can't pay my bills. I can't pay my light bill and things like that. We can't necessarily help all of those individuals, but people that need legal guidance, we're able to direct them to where they can get that help from. Mental health is a huge issue with some of these fathers. When you can't see your kids, it's a big draw on your emotions and your mental health, especially when you want to be a part of their lives. So we're able to direct them to people that can assist them with some of those issues. So approximately 40 fathers so far.
And where would you like to see the project go? Like, how would you like to expand?
Programs, face-to-face programs where fathers come in and get face-to-face consultations, legal assistance. That's why I say I would like to see a hub where they can ask, because, men are finicky. So when it comes to, trying to get some help, you got to have something that will draw them in so they can have these conversations. To them, these are private conversations, right? So if we had a hub where they can actually come in, there's men in there that they can actually sit down and talk to. Some of them just want to talk. They say, hey, have you experienced it? Yeah, I have experienced this. This is what you need to do. They just want another man to talk to about some of the things they're going through with the mother or with the children and things like that. So I see Daytona being the hub for the Dwally Foundation, where we have those resources available and we can reach communities in other areas of the country as well, and make a difference in some of these children's lives through their fathers. We believe it builds stronger communities, stronger schools, the dads are involved, and safer communities when dads are involved. So that's the agenda we're pushing.
Great.
And there's some people in Ohio that called me the other day. They're pushing legislation behind parental alienation because there's a huge issue with moms weaponizing the children. And they're pushing legislation to try to prevent that from happening because it's a negative impact on the kid.
I think Florida has a big fatherhood initiative through the governor's. Is one of his initiatives is the fatherhood initiative. So, and I think it offers grants too. It's something you could look into
Definitely.
as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But you'll hear more from us, or some of us.
Well, I have another question. Do you meet regularly with these fathers? I'm looking at your email now, and I don't see like a physical address. I see the email and the website.
So it's not like a group. At this point, it's not like a group meeting with these fathers. It's a case-by-case basis. There's so many individual situations that need to be addressed. They need different things. And it's just me. So I'm building the organization to where we have the resources to address all the needs of these fathers, which is a huge undertaking. And that's why we need funding for facilities, funding for people to come in and assist us to do whatever it takes to get these fathers back in their children's lives.
Well, I'm listening to you telling us that this is on the 14th and you're about $15,000 short and you're within 2 weeks of your event.
Yes.
That's some poor budgeting, Mr. Kelly. Because where are you going to get that money from?
I've already planned to foot the bill myself to make this happen.
Okay.
That's how passionate I am about it. So any help I get will be fantastic, but it's going to go off regardless of whether I get the help or not.
All right.
So I actually, if you look at the agenda, I actually provided $800 to your program. I appreciate what you're doing for families, so thank you.
Thank you very much for your donation.
And I see this says at the Cherry Center, which is in my zone. I'm stopping by. And even if you get a donation later because we've already made our commitments tonight.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Would you like to get on the agenda? I'd love to have you on the agenda.
Well, what I'm going to say? Hey, daddies. I can do that.
Okay.
I can do that.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all listening.
All right.
Our next speaker is John Nicholson, and on deck is Ann Ruby.
Boy, I'm hungry.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. With that last gentleman, I understand where he's coming from. My brother went through that. His wife vanished with the kids, and he never got to see his children again. So that does happen. So if you could be generous, please do so. Secondly, I'd like to know where we're at with the ACLU lawsuit. I do firmly believe in one man, one vote. With 20,000 people in one zone and 12,000 in another, that's not one man, one vote. So we have, if we're going to rezone, we might as well get it over with. And we are not at 70,000 people anymore. We are at least at 85, which would change drastically all of the zones. Secondly, I want to thank you for listening to Jenny and looking at the landscaping. She's been working hard on this. I think she has a valid point, both in saving water, because that will be an issue in the future. Water will be an issue. At the council meeting last night, it came up that there's saltwater intrusion all the way over on the west side of the county. So if there's saltwater intrusion in Astor, you know there's going to be saltwater intrusion in Daytona Beach as well. Lastly, it's kind of hard to bring this up, but I know Paula was trying to be as nice as she can. And the commissioner knows, and there's no way around this. You have to grow a thick skin. Making nasty comments just brings down the quality of this commission. I know you could get hurt, but sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and be quiet, because it hurts all of the commissioners if any one of you gets nasty with somebody else. So I'm asking you to be cognizant of the fact that what you say is not only here in this room, it's not only your fellow commissioners, but it goes out over the air, and it, like you heard it, they're from Ormond. They're from Port Orange. So what do they think of our commission if we are not civil to each other? So I know it's an awkward conversation, but I think you all should at least understand. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ann Ruby, and on deck is Ken Southall.
Hi, Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue, very short. Tomorrow night is a B&W meeting. Sheriff Chitwood is our guest. Ted is making a pork roast and then making sandwiches. There'll be sides and desserts. So I want to invite people, particularly beachside residents, to come and join us. And if there's anybody from the mainland who wants to come, they're invited too. So, thank you.
Thank you.
What day is it? Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't say where. It's at Our Lady of Lords in the community room, and it starts at 6:30. Thank you, John. Doors will open at 6.
Our next speaker is Ken Southall, and on deck is Steve Miller.
My name is Ken Southall. I live at 920 Catholic Street, in probably the worst part of the flood area. And I'm noticing, I'm trying to get in contact with the people, and I'm finding that if we somehow can can meet them somewhere, because there's no one here that's in that area addressing the problem. So we got to figure out why. And we got to find a means of getting in contact with them to let them know that we are there for them. And they don't believe that, honestly. And that's a problem with me. And I'm trying to find out how can I communicate with them and you all to make a difference. And I'm finding a problem with that too, because I was about the FEMA insurance. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he was a prominent member of that area, and he have never heard that FEMA give that insurance to that affordable insurance that they can't afford. And it's amazed me that the way they found out about it, because their insurance told them that FEMA does have this insurance, and a number of them don't know anything about it, and the information not being passed on to each other. So I'm just trying to figure out how can we, if we find a means of helping them, so they can believe it and get that information and act upon it. So what can we do? I'm just asking. And another thing I'm asking, how does your permits, your building permits, in this area, a lady was putting an addition on her house. And it's in this flood zone area, and they got the same elevation as the existing house. Putting that addition on that house, it's gonna flood out too. It's not doing anything. And next door to this particular house, a lady put a room in the back of the home. And that room is sitting that high off the ground. But the house next door, the same elevation that the existing house is built upon, is being built. And I don't understand it. Why would they allow that? I mean, if the people don't know and they're not doing anything to help themselves, they hurt themselves. How can we inform them that they cannot do it this way for their benefit? I'm just asking. What can we do? I'm willing to help work with the commission. If we can set up a point in time that we can meet with these people and explain to them what's going on and give them a reason to see a future in it, because I met a lady out there came in 67. They've been flooded out 6 times. 6 times. And each time they've been flooded out. To rebuild or modify this house, I guess that house from $20,000 at that particular time will cost $300,000 to build today in that area.
Thank you, sir. I just want to address that. Excuse me, sir. No, whoa. Can you go back for a second? So that's okay. No, it's okay. Me, right here. Hey there. So,
I'm 78 years old.
no, you're doing great for 78. Don't go. So I was going to share with you that when we met at the meeting at Pastor Harris's church, I was so intrigued by what you said about the flood insurance that I contacted FEMA. Following that, I had a Zoom conference with their flood insurance people and the FEMA rep that I knew. And what they were trying to figure out was how they could come down here and do little informational meetings. So I'm just waiting to hear back from them. So I was just actually contacting them to see where they were with that. But I was really, when you mentioned that to me, I researched it a little bit and I did speak with FEMA itself. So let me work on that a little bit, and then it would be a matter of them coming into the community, possibly doing a little, I said, let's try video seminars that we can send out to people, etc., so they get the information.
Okay, all I ask, when you do get this information, if you get with me, I'll
Yes,
get with
that's
you.
perfect. That's what I'm
And
hoping
I'll
for.
help
Excellent.
pass this information on.
Yeah, yeah. But it does exist. Not quite the way you described it, but it does exist. But it does exist, yeah.
Kenneth, at the Dickerson Center, I think until December 7th. They're there now, well, not now, but 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. until December 7th at the Dickerson Center, 308 Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. They will have representatives from FEMA are going to be there. So if you have this neighbor of yours, you could tell them to go. They're there until December 7th.
Okay, for me, can I get some flyers, something like that I can pass on to them? Because in talking with people.
Yes.
Just come in the morning. We'll have it.
Can you come in the morning and pick it up at the front desk?
I'll come with.
Tomorrow by 9 a.m.
I'll be here. Upstairs. Okay, thank you.
And our final speaker tonight is Mr. Steve Miller.
Steve Miller, 383 Walnut Street, beautiful Daytona Beach, Florida. I almost forgot, Mr. Fiat, that today is a wonderful day. It is the day that Alpha Phi Alpha was founded at Ithaca, New York, the first Black Greek organization in the United States, and the father of Q Psi Phi. And another great thing is that 50 years ago today, I pledged and went over at Florida State, out of the Delta, and one of the first meetings I ever attended was they made us go to a city commission meeting. And we end up having to go to every city commission meeting in Tallahassee. So if you all want to blame somebody because of my love for my city, you have to give those guys at Florida State a call. The neighborhood watch meeting for this month would be Lieutenant Green. He's the pastor of Salvation Army. He's from Fort Myers, Florida. And we're also going to have Karen from the Volusia Recovery Alliance. We're going to come and talk. We still have a lot of people throughout our neighborhoods who OD on fentanyl, and we want to try to make sure that we keep as many alive as we can. Man, I ran for County Council District 2. Sorry I didn't make it, but my whole purpose for running was because I didn't like a statement that was made at the County Council, where one of the councils stated that Daytona Beach was full of prostitutes, transit, crime infested, and they would not come here unless you had a gun and a scanner. And the person who represent the great Daytona Beach didn't open their mouth. So, man, I came close. 21,000 votes. I'm thrilled with that one with 7,000. And this guy had over $100,000+ and 4,000 votes he won by. Something else happened too. I happened to come to the last commission meeting. I think it was the last commission meeting when our representative Hardy Smith was here. And I didn't understand that conversation. So I'm truly making a meeting with your city manager and for our city attorney. And it's something that went like, if we had the right representative, we would get more from the state of Florida. I kind of felt a little offended, so I truly want to get some more insight on what that was all about, because I have no problem fighting for the community that I live in. And last but not least, man, the election is over. You guys got a raise from the citizens of Daytona Beach, and I'm thrilled to have been on the Salary Review Commission, because I truly felt that you guys deserved a raise and all the work that you're doing and the work that you're going to do in the future. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year And we're having our meeting on the 9th, which is Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, Daytona Beach.
We'll take it.